Bueno, buenos días. ¿Cómo están? Espero que estén
Well,
muy
good morning. How
bien.
are you? I hope
Bienvenidos a
that you are
todos.
doing
Buenas
fine. Good
tardes
morning.
a
Welcome
los
to
que
all
nos
of you. Good
acompañan
afternoon
de
to
un
those
poquito
who are
más
accompanying us
lejos
from a
que
little more
América.
distant
Así
place
que,
than
pues bienvenidos a
the American
este
continent.
webinar
So,
que
welcome to
tendremos
this
el día de hoy.
webinar
Hoy
that we're
vamos
going
a
to have
hablar
today.
sobre
Today, we're going
todo
to be
lo que
talking
es la
about
vigilancia, la
everything that has to
inspección
do with
en
surveillance,
fronteras, en
inspection at
puertos,
borders,
aeropuertos,
at ports,
tanto
airports,
para la peste porcina
both for
africana como para
the
otras enfermedades
African pork swine,
transfronterizas. Mi nombre
swine
es
fever, sorry,
Erika Calderón.
as
Yo
well as
trabajo
our other
para el
transbordering
Instituto
illness.
Interamericano de
My name is Eric
Cooperación
Calderon. I work for the
para la
ICA,
Agricultura, el IICA,
Inter-American Institute
y
for
en
Cooperation in
conjunto con la
Agriculture.
doctora Camposano
And along
vamos a
with Dr.
estar
Caposano, we're going to be
moderando el webinar del
moderating this
día de hoy.
webinar today.
Simplemente recordarles,
Simply to
esto es
remind you
una
that this
iniciativa
is an initiative,
interagencial que está
a
dentro del marco
multi-agency
del
initiative that is within
IEFTATS.
the framework of the EATAC,
Somos un grupo interagencial
and
que
we are
estamos
an
haciendo
interagency group
webinars y capacitación
that we're doing
para la
webinars and trainings
preparación
for
de
the
la
preparation
respuesta y la
of the
prevención
response
de
and
la peste
prevention
porcina
of
africana
the
y
African
otras
swine fever
enfermedades transfronterizas.
and other
En
transbordering
este grupo
illnesses.
interagencial
In this interagency group,
están envueltos varias
we have
agencias
involved several
internacionales
international
y
agencies
regionales,
and
como lo
regional
son
agencies,
el Caribex,
as are
CAPSA,
the
la
Caribes,
OMSA,
CAPSA,
la
the
FAO, la
OMSA, the
CAN,
FAO, the
el
CAN,
CEPE,
the
el USDA,
CBP, the
OIRSA,
USDA,
COPEC y el
OISA,
ICA como
COPEC, and
coordinador.
the ICA as a coordinator.
Entonces, el día de hoy vamos a
So
tener
today,
excelentes
we're going to have
presentaciones, vamos
wonderful
a
presentations.
tener
We're
por
going
parte
to
de OIRSA
have, on
algunas
behalf of
generalidades de
OISA,
lo que la
the
experiencia que tienen
generality of
ellos
the
en
experience
cuanto
that they
a la
have
inspección en las
in regard to the
fronteras y
inspection
accesos a
at the borders
aeropuertos.
and airports
También vamos
and
a tener
ports.
la
And we're
experiencia
also going to have
de
the
República
experience
Dominicana
of the Dominican Republic
en cuanto a este tema. También vamos a tener la
in this
experiencia de
topic. And we're also
México
going to have the
y
experience of Mexico
de Europa.
and of
Así
Europe
que
also.
recordarles también
And just to
que
remind you
este
also that
webinar está siendo
this webinar is being
traducido
translated
tanto
into
a
three
el
languages,
inglés
to
como al
English,
francés
French, and
como al
Portuguese.
portugués. Estamos en redes
We are
sociales,
in social
tanto en
networks,
YouTube
both
como
in
en
YouTube as well
Facebook
as in
del
Facebook
ICA, donde
of
también
the ICA,
podrán
where you can
ver
also
este evento del día de
see this
hoy.
event today.
Además,
And apart
tenemos
from that,
la
we have
oportunidad de
the
hacer
opportunity
preguntas al
of
final
posing
del
questions
webinar,
at the end of the webinar,
ya sea a través de los
be it through the
chats
chat,
convencionales,
the
tanto
conventional
en
chat,
redes sociales como
both in
en
social
Zoom,
networks as well as in
como
Zoom,
en la sección
as well
acá
as
en
in the
Zoom de
section here
preguntas.
in Zoom for questions and
Nos
answers.
gustaría también que nos cuenten de
We
dónde
would
nos
also like you
visitan,
to tell
de qué
us where you're
institución, de qué
visiting us
país.
from,
Es
what
importante para
institution.
nosotros tener un récord
It is
de
important for us
la
to have a record
participación y de las
of the
diferentes
participation and the
instituciones que
different
nos acompañan el día de hoy.
institutions that are
Entonces,
accompanying us
bueno,
today.
sin más,
So without
vamos
further
a
ado,
iniciar con la
we are
primera
going to begin with the first
presentación a
presentation
cargo del
in charge of
ingeniero
the engineer,
Iván Hernández.
Jose Ivan
Sin
Hernandez,
antes, bueno, voy a dar una
without first
leve
giving a brief
presentación
presentation of his
de sus
background,
antecedentes. El ingeniero
of
agrónomo
him.
José
The
Iván Hernández es
agronomical engineer,
egresado de la
Jose Ivan
Universidad
Hernandez, is a
Nacional de
graduate from the National
Agricultura
University of
en
Agriculture
Olancho, Honduras.
in Olancho,
Cuenta con
Honduras.
una
He has
maestría
a
de la
master's
Escuela Europea de
from the
Negocios
European
en
School of
Logística
Business in Logistics,
Internacional y
International
Gestión
Logistics,
en la
and
cadena de
Management
suministros.
in the
José Iván
supply
tiene
chain
25 años de
management. Jose
experiencia
Ivan has 25 years
trabajando
of
en
experience working
bioseguridad
in
fronteriza para
biosecurity,
la región del
bordering
Organismo
biosecurity,
Internacional
for the region of
Regional de
the
Sanidad
International Organism
Agropecuaria,
of
OIRSA,
Agropecuary
que incluye los países
Health,
de México,
which is
Belice
OIRSA,
y El
that includes the
Salvador,
countries of Mexico, Belize, and El
Honduras,
Salvador, Honduras,
Nicaragua, Costa
Nicaragua,
Rica,
Costa
Panamá
Rica,
y
Panama,
República
and
Dominicana.
Dominican Republic.
Es en la actualidad el
It
director
is He is
regional de
currently
servicios
the
cuarenternarios de
General
OIRSA.
Director of
La
the
experiencia de
Quarantine
Iván en
Services
el
of the OIRSA,
funcionamiento de los
the experience
servicios
of
de
Ivan in
cuarentena
the
y tratamientos
operation of the
cuarentenarios de productos
services and
agropecuarios y sus
quarantine
aportes en las
services
iniciativas
of
para
agro and
fortalecer
livestock,
la
and
bioseguridad
its initiative to
fronteriza
strengthen the
regional
bordering
resultan en la reducción
transbordering
de riesgos en
security,
materia de
reduces in
comercio
the
y seguridad
reduction
del
of risk in the
patrimonio
matter of commerce
agropecuario
and trade,
para la región.
and the security of
Con
agro and
esto,
livestock for the region. And
Iván,
with this
yo te cedo
introduction,
la
Ivan,
palabra
I give you now the
para que nos
floor
compartas tu
so that you might share
presentación
with us your
y puedas
presentation,
iniciar.
and you might be able to begin.
Sí, buenos días. Buenos días
Yes,
a
good
todos.
morning.
Muchas
Good morning to all of
gracias,
you.
Erika.
Welcome. Thank
Muchas
you.
gracias
Thank
a
you,
todos,
Erika.
¿verdad? Por
Thanks to all of you
la iniciativa
for the
realmente
initiative
de realizar este webinar
of carrying
y
out this
poder
webinar
compartir
and being
todo
able
lo
to
que se viene
share
haciendo en materia en
everything that is being
diferentes
done
áreas, ¿verdad? Y en este
in
caso
different areas. And in
agrícola
this case, that is of concern to us in the matter of biosecurity, transbordering biosecurity. The presentation that we have prepared for today is the importance of biosecurity at the border control points. When we talk about biosecurity, we are always referring to a series of measures, not one single measure as such. We know that it's not going to be as simple as that. We know that this is not what is going to allow us to carry out our effective control. It has to be several measures that have to be put in place. At some moments, we apply several measures, and we don't know which one was the effective one to be able to control determined illness, but altogether is a way that we are able to really avoid a pest or an illness to be able to come into a country and therefore into a region and a continent. And it is regarding that we're going to be talking about today. These aspects that we have prepared is a table, chart of the content, and it's a little bit to talk about what the ORISA is all about, what it is that we do as a regional organism, what are the threats that we have to face, and we are also going to talk about both the area and the phytosanitary also. We're going to talk a little bit about both areas, Suo and Pito. What is the impact that it has, the fact that there might be a pest that might come into a country or a region. What are the consequences of that? We're going to talk also about some recent events that have taken place and how have we faced them. How have the countries of the region of the Orissa, how are they preparing themselves? With what technologies are they adopting for the control to avoid a pest or an illness to avoid a pest or an illness from coming into the region. We're going to talk a little bit about the regional directory that we represent in this case of all the quarantine services and the quarantine treatments as such, what they mean. Well, the ORISA, as you have heard, it has 4 technical areas, each one of them in their specialty. In the case of animal health, logically, we have determined what it is that we have to cover in each one of the areas, working hand in hand with the services, the national services of agro and livestock sanitary services in the countries. We also have the vegetable sanitary divisions that gives coverage, working hand in hand with the ONTS and the vegetable sanitary divisions, and all the quarantine services also that have to do with intrusive, non-intrusive inspections, the implementation of new measures, and in general, the measures for mitigation of risk. All those threats that might be detected at ports, airports, or borders, how are we going to mitigate them? What are we going to offer to the trade so that it can really flow? It would be a facilitation. And the part of food safety. That is the 4 strategic areas within the ORISA. And each one of us complies with that mission, accompanying the countries. The only mission of the ORISA is definitely to support the ministries of agriculture and livestock. That is the mission, that is our sole duty. Within the main threats, sanitary threats of the region, we have the PPA, or the swine fever, the African swine fever, and for that we have done some analysis to support this. The risk analysis, as you know, allow us to identify those threats, where a threat might come from, to prepare for that. We talked about the classic swine fever, which continues being a threat for the region.
se han autodeclarado y
As
viene
you
el
know, some of the
proceso
countries have
ya
declared themselves
de
and they are
reconocimiento propiamente
coming to
por
the
la
process of recognition by the
Otra amenaza es la influencia aviar de alta patogenicidad,
WHO. Another one is
tenemos la fiebre aftosa, que sigue
aviar
siendo amenaza
flu
para la región de los
because of
irises
its high
tropical,
pathogeny. We have some that continue
en
being
la región de
a
los
risk to the
irises
region,
de México, Centroamérica,
concentrating on the region of
Panamá y
the Orissa,
República
Mexico,
Dominicana.
Central America, Panama, and Dominican
La
Republic.
encefalopatía espongiforme bovina, que
La
nos activa siempre,
encefalopatía
¿verdad?
equiforme
Todas
bovine,
estas amenazas
the bovine
en la región igual
stiff-form
nos tenemos que
encephalopathy.
poner
When this activates in our regions, we
operativos y
have to be
vigilantes.
very active and very
Y
vigilant.
el gusano barrenador,
And
ya como ustedes saben, y
the
este es un
boerworm,
ejemplo realmente el gusano
that you
barrenador,
know, the boerworm,
de por qué
as you
nosotros
know,
debemos trabajar
we have to work on that
o enfocarnos siempre
or
en el
focus
Orissa.
always
¿Por
on
qué
the
debemos
Orissa.
trabajar
Why
como
do we have to
viendo
work
la región,
at
tratando
looking
de
at the region,
blindar la
trying to
región?
provide or
Porque una
trying to armor the
enfermedad
region because an illness
como esta, por ejemplo,
like this one, for
del gusano
example,
barrenador,
of
hablando del área
the
de amenazas
boerworm,
sanitarias,
talking about
si
the
entra uno
area
ahí
of sanitary
es cuestión
risk. If it comes into
tiempo,
the country, it's just a
muy
matter of
poco
time,
tiempo, o
very
puede
little time,
tardarse en algunas ocasiones,
or it
pero
can take
va a
some
moverse
time
hacia
in
los
some
demás
opportunities, but
países,
it's going to move to the
¿verdad?
rest of the
Por
countries
diferentes razones,
because of different
¿verdad?
reasons.
Que quizás
That
podríamos
maybe
ahondar
we
esas
might go
razones,
deeper
los
into those
motivos por los que
reasons, the reasons
pueden
why
facilitar,
they
¿verdad?
might facilitate
Realmente que una plaga o enfermedad se mueva más
that a pest
rápidamente
or an illness might be able to
entre
move
un
more
país y otro.
quickly between one country and the other.
También cuando hablamos de bioseguridad,
When we talk about
no
biosecurity,
podemos discriminar aquí entre cuáles
that we
son,
cannot discriminate
cuáles
here
son sanitarias nada
between which are
más
sanitary,
y vamos a dejar a un lado las
and we're
amenazas
going to leave aside
para el área vegetal, como podemos, ¿verdad? Y tenemos
threats for the
las
vegetable
principales
area. And we
amenazas
have
que
the
están
main
ahí siempre y que nos
affections that are
preocupan.
always there and that are always
Y esto
concerning
es
us. And
por
this is
lo altamente
because
destructivas que
of the
pueden
highly
ser
destructive that they might
o
be,
altamente
or the
restrictivas que
highly
pueden ser.
restrictive for traits that
Entonces,
they
es
might
por
be.
eso que están ubicadas
And that is why they are located there within
dentro
that
de esta
list,
categoría, por ejemplo,
in
por
that
ese
category.
trogoderma
Like, for
granario,
example, the
es una
Granarium
plaga
trochoderma, which is
de alta
a
importancia
high importance
para
pest
nosotros por lo
for us
altamente restrictiva que
because
es
how
actualmente.
restrictive it is
Si
for
nos
trade.
detectan el trogoderma
If
granario
we have
en un país, si un
Granarium,
país declara presencia
Trochoderma
de trogoderma
granarium
granario,
in a country, if a country
en
declares the presence of
automático
this, automatically
a ese país
that country
le llegan un montón de
is banned
restricciones, ¿verdad? Por
or
razones
receives a series of
obvias, ¿verdad?
restrictions
Nadie quiere tener
for
una
obvious
plaga
reasons
tan
because nobody wants to have
destructiva
such a destructive pest
como el trogoderma granario, una
as
plaga de granos almacenados, me refiero.
uh,
Está el FOC R4T, ¿verdad? Que esta es, por
would have
ejemplo, una
the
amenaza muy seria que nos
and
está
this is a very
ocupando
serious
también
threat that is
en los
really
últimos años, a lo cual hemos estado realmente
concerning
desde
us also.
OIRSA, ¿verdad?
The Poseidon
Apoyando a los
superiors
países
are concerned about this,
para
supporting the countries
prepararse en diferentes actividades. Ahí sí, ¿verdad? Pero sí
uh,
preparándonos con
to prepare
simulacros,
in different
brindándoles
activities.
algunas
But we have been
herramientas
preparing
con las que nos
ourselves
podemos preparar, porque
with
ya
which we
ustedes
might
sabrán
get ready because, as you know,
si una enfermedad
if an
como
illness
el
such
COVID,
as
raza 4
the
tropical nos
race
ingresara,
4 tropical
sería
came into our countries,
devastadora,
it
¿verdad?
would be
Para nuestra
devastating
economía y
for
para
our
nuestra
economy and
seguridad
for our
alimentaria,
food
realmente.
safety.
Tenemos también
We also
el
have
jaguar gigante africano,
the giant
¿verdad? Sigue
African
siendo una amenaza
snail.
y está
It
ahí.
continues being a threat, and it's
Estamos
there.
tratando de erradicarla
We are trying to
diferentes
eradicate
países
it,
realmente. La
accompanying the
megacosta
countries.
cribraria, que es otra
The
plaga
Mecosta cribaria,
beneficiosa, ¿verdad?
which is another
Que
pest
estamos
for
preparados,
leguminous
hemos diseñado
that we have been
protocolos en la
prepared for.
región.
We have designed protocols in
Otras
the
como
region.
tuta absoluta,
Others like
pupilia
Tuta
japónica.
absoluta, the
Bueno,
Japanese
en el caso de la
pupilia.
pupilia japónica,
In
que
the case of
es
the
una plaga tan
Japanese pupilia, which
importante,
is a pest that is so important,
o que puede ser, es
or that
considerada de
might be
importancia económica por el hecho
considered of economic
del daño
relevance
que puede
because of
hacer.
the
De hecho,
facts
algunos
of the
países,
damage that they can cause.
y hablemos
And
en
it
este
might be
caso
in
de
some of the
Estados
countries,
Unidos,
and
han
let's talk about this
incluso
case,
diseñado
the United States,
protocolos
they even have even
específicos para
designed
atender las
specific protocols to
aeronaves,
attend
las aeronaves que vienen procedentes de
airplanes
sitios
coming
donde hay
from
presencia
places
de
where they
pupilia
have the
japónica.
presence of Japanese
Prácticamente,
pupilia.
si lo hablamos con
If
palabras
we
así
talk about this very
populares,
bluntly, very
envuelven
openly,
el avión
they wrap
de
the
acuerdo al
airplane
protocolo
according to the protocol. They wrap the
para
airplane up
asegurarse de
to
que no
ensure
va,
that there is not
de que esa aeronave
that
va a
this
recibir el
aircraft is
tratamiento
going to receive
respectivo
the adequate treatment
para evitar que pueda haber
to avoid
un
the
escape.
introduction
La aviomorfa,
of one of
ARIS,
these
plaga también de granos
Allelophalis.
y el
This
virus
is another pest
rugoso
for
de
the
tomate.
grains and the scarring virus of the tomato.
Hablemos de la relevancia
Okay, let's talk
del
about the
sistema
relevance of a
cuarentenario
quarantine
y por qué
service, a very
debemos tenerlo.
robust quarantine system.
Y comenzaba
Why
con
do we have to have
esto,
it? And I began
como
with this
hablaba en la introducción a lo
when
que
I
es
was
la
talking in the
bioseguridad.
introduction to
Y ahí
biosecurity.
sí que realmente es una,
And there it is really
mencionamos siempre que
there's something that we
es la
mentioned that
sumatoria
it
de
is
todas las
the
medidas, no es
addition of
una
all
sola
the different
medida
measures.
como
It's
tal la
not
que me va a
one
hacer
single measure
efectiva.
that it's going to be
Entonces,
make it effective.
nosotros en
So
las
we,
fronteras,
at the
los
borders,
aeropuertos y en
at the
los puertos
airports and ports,
aplicamos, o los
we
países,
apply for
nosotros
the countries.
apoyamos para que los
We
países
support the
apliquen
countries
una serie
for the countries
de
to
medidas de
apply a series of
mitigación de
measures
riesgos
for
que
mitigation of
puedan
risks
realmente asegurar
that might be
que
able to
sean
ensure
factibles, que
that
son
it
viables,
is
¿verdad?
that they are
El
feasible,
poder
that they are
realizarlo.
that they can be carried out.
¿Y por qué debemos tener un
And
sistema
why do we have to have
cuarentenario
a
robusto?
quarantine,
Bueno,
a very
el sistema
robust quarantine
cuarentenario es
service?
la
Well,
primera línea
the
de
quarantine
defensa que
service
tienen
is the
los
first
países.
defense line that
Es
the
ahí
countries have.
donde comienza todo.
It is
Si una
where everything
plaga
begins. If a pest
o enfermedad
or an
rebasa esa
illness
línea, ya estamos en muchos problemas,
overrides that line,
porque ya significa
we're facing
mucha
problems.
plata.
Why? Because
Ustedes lo
then it's
saben.
going to be a lot of money
Ya
involved.
rebasando esa, mientras esté fuera de nuestras fronteras, no hay problema. Debemos invertir siempre en cómo
As long as it's
fortalecer y
outside of our
blindar la
borders,
región,
there's no
los
problem. We
países.
have to think about
Pero
how we
una
can
vez
strengthen
esto,
or armor our
ya las
countries. But
implicaciones
once
son otras,
the
¿verdad?
pest comes into
Las
the countries,
implicaciones ya
the
hablábamos de
implications are others. The implications,
pérdidas,
we have said
¿verdad?
that there would be, we're
Disminución
talking about
en la
losses or
producción.
reduction in the production.
Empezar programas de erradicación.
We have to begin with eradication programs, control programs, and we have to think about eradication, which is this is something that is translated into a lot of money. And that is the importance of being able to have in the ports, airports, and borders
los controles efectivos e irnos adecuando realmente a incorporar
the effective controls and really adapting to the best technologies possible.
apoyándonos de todo, de robot,
supporting ourselves on everything, on robots, artificial intelligence. That is something that is completely feasible to try to come ahead of all those situations that might help us be able to detect those threats. And well, talking about another great impact is that this trust that is given to our main commercial partners, the fact of being able to have a quarantine system that is avoiding the introduction of a pest or an illness into a country. This with a mindset on the opening of new markets, of new commercial partners, to send new products, to maintain the ones we have, and to be able to send new products to new countries. That is our main goal. At the end of the day, all this will create the new opportunities of growth for the countries and for our producers. And what is the impact? Well, this is what I was mentioning. The impact of an introduction of an illness, it's not that it just overrode the quarantine. It went over the control, biosecurity control points. The quarantine service, the pest came in. But that's not just going to finish there. It's going to have an impact, like we were saying. The impact is that the country is going to have to control it. Yes or yes, there's no other possibility. And that's what it means, a lot of money. We start looking for help in our friend countries that are always there with us. But our commercial partners will impose restrictions, to say it somehow. They will impose quarantine measures. Quarantine measures, I'm going to say it like that, as it is logic. Each one of the countries has to protect itself. If you have a threat, if you have mouth fever, I have to protect myself and avoid bringing products from that country. So first, I'm going to shut down the market for a while. Then I will continue on with the analysis, and it might be that I might expand the time of the quarantine, to say it somehow, or I might simply close down completely a market. It is in a very general manner mentioning this, but These are the
eso debemos
possible
tenerlas y que
consequences that
eso
we might have
haga o una
when we have
enfermedad
the
que sea
introduction of a pest or
altamente
an illness
restrictiva al comercio.
that
Entonces,
are highly
el hecho
restricted
de que
to
una
trade.
plaga
So
rebase
the fact that
el sistema
a pest
cuarentenario
might
o esa primera línea de
overrun
defensa
the
tiene
quarantine service
consecuencias
or the
graves.
system, or that
Si
first
no,
line of
no son
defense might
ejemplos
have
en el mundo que se han
grave
dado, son
consequences.
ejemplos
And if not, let's
recientes,
look at
¿verdad?
the examples that have happened in the world
Y
recently.
mencionemos
And
el
let's just
caso en este
mention
último que
a
tenemos
couple
ahí
of them in this case that we have there
para lo del gusano barrenador.
for the drill worm, for the
Sucedió
bollworm.
tal cual
It
estaba
happened,
explicando. Estados
as
Unidos
I was
cerró
explaining
por
it, the United States shut
dos
down
semanas,
for 2
¿verdad?
weeks
El ingreso de ganado
the introduction of
proveniente de
a
México.
cattle sent from Mexico.
Luego lo aperturaron por
Then they opened it
unos cuantos días y luego se
for a few
cierra
days, and
nuevamente.
then
No se
it was
sabe
shut
por
down
cuánto
again,
tiempo,
and nobody
pero
knows
eso
for how
impacta la
long.
economía
But that has an impact on the
de
economy,
todos los países, ¿verdad? Y
an
eso
impact on the
es
economy
un
of all of the
problema
countries,
porque
and that is something
debemos
that is
evitar que
sort of like a
una
chain
nueva
reaction.
enfermedad ingrese a un
So
país
that's why we have to avoid a pest or an illness
la
from coming
región
into the
y
country,
ese
because it's going to be the region,
efectivamente
it's
al
going to be the
final,
continent, and
¿verdad?
at the
Nos
end,
afecta a
it's
todos
going to
de
affect
una u otra
everybody
manera.
one way or another.
Disculpe, Iván, se
Sorry, you
metió
run.
el audio de
We have
portugués,
the
por
audio
favor.
of Portuguese coming into this. Sorry.
Adelante.
Perdón, sí.
Go ahead.
Ok, bueno, dentro de los eventos
Within the
recientes
events,
que
the
hemos
recent
tenido,
events, we have
el
had
ingreso de, como ustedes saben, el
the
brote de la
introduction, as you
PPA en
might know,
República
the
Dominicana, ¿verdad? Hace un par de
outbreak
años,
of the
pero
AFS, ASF, sorry, in Dominican
el
Republic. It
ingreso de una
came into
plaga
the
o una
country a few
enfermedad
years ago.
los
But
sistemas
the introduction
cuarentenarios al
of
final
a pest, the quarantine services or
están como
systems
esa primera línea de
are the
defensa, pero al
ones
final
that
es
are the first line of
retrasar
defense. But
el
at
ingreso,
the end,
¿verdad?
it's just
Lo
to
habrá que
delay the
evitar,
incoming and
pero
hopefully
no
avoiding.
puede haber un sistema
But there is
cuarentenario
not a quarantine service. There
infalible.
cannot be
Por eso
an
es la
unbreakable quarantine
colaboración de todas las
service.
entidades y aplicación correcta de
And
todas las
the other one
medidas
is
es
the correct
fundamental.
application of all the measures
En
is
este
something that is
caso,
fundamental. In this case,
la PPA que ingresó, se
the
aplicaron una serie de medidas en
ASF that
República Dominicana y
uh,
una
broke out,
situación
they applied a
quizá
series of measures in
única en
Dominican
el
Republic,
mundo.
and maybe a
No sé
situation that is unique in the
si
world. I don't know
tuvieran la
if
oportunidad, alguno de
you
los que
had the
nos está
opportunity, some of you though that
escuchando, de conocer una
is
experiencia
listening
como
to
la
us,
que se tiene en
of
República
knowing an experience
Dominicana,
that the
que
Dominican
se tomó
Republic
la
has,
medida
that they
de
made the measures
apoyar
to
sí
support
la región. Y esto
the region,
mencionar que con el
and
apoyo del
with
USDA,
this to
¿verdad?
support that with support of
Se
the USDA,
fortaleció, se
they
fortalecieron
strengthened
las diferentes acciones en
the
campo,
different
pero
actions in the
también
field, but also
se formó
they put
un
together
escuadrón canino o la unidad
a
canina.
canine squad or a
Y lo
canine
único en
unit.
el mundo, lo que quiero
And the only
resaltar es
thing in the
que en
world
esta
that what I want
ocasión
to point out
República
is that in this
Dominicana
opportunity,
está
the Dominican Republic
realizando
is
actividades
carrying out
para
activities
evitar
to
que la
avoid
PPA salga de
the
República Dominicana hacia
ASF
otros países
from
de la región,
breaking out
¿verdad?
from
Es por
Dominican
eso
Republic to other countries of the
que
region.
la unidad canina que se
So
ha
that is why the
formado,
canine unit that was put
que es
together,
una de las más fuertes
which is one of the
en la
strongest
región después de
in the
México,
region after Mexico,
¿verdad? Tenemos 35
we have
binomios
35
caninos operando en República
canine
Dominicana y
binomials operating in
están
the Dominican
en
Republic,
los
and
diferentes
we
aeropuertos,
have been present
pero
in the different airports,
inspeccionando
and they are
la
inspecting
salida de los pasajeros. Es
the
decir, que
departure
si usted
of
sale de República
passengers.
Dominicana
In other words, if you are
con un
leaving
salami,
Dominican
es
Republic
casi
with a
seguro que
salami,
no va a poder hacerlo. Por
it
lo
is
menos si
almost
lo
sure
lleva
that
en
you're
su
not going to be able
maleta,
to do it. At least if
casi
you have it in
seguro que
your
no lo va a poder hacer. Si
suitcase,
lleva
it's almost sure that you're not going to be able to do it.
ricos
Or if you
chicharrones,
have some
es
nice
difícil que lo
pork
pueda
rind,
hacer porque
you
están
probably will not
los
be able to
binomios
take it
caninos
because
inspeccionando su
they have
equipaje
the
a la
canine
salida
binomiums
antes de
inspecting
que usted
your
salga. Y esto, bueno, hasta el
luggage be at
momento ha
departure.
sido una medida muy
And this, to
efectiva
this moment, has
porque
been a very effective measure.
se ha
Why?
mantenido
Because they have been able to
¿verdad?
maintain
Esta enfermedad
this illness under control.
no se ha movido o no ha cruzado la frontera de
This illness
otro,
has not migrated and crossed the borders into
aérea en
another
este
country,
caso, ¿verdad? Lógicamente de otro
aerial,
país.
in this case, to other countries.
Entonces, esta es una
So this
experiencia
is
única,
a unique
¿verdad? Que
experience
conocemos hasta el momento
that we know of
en
at
el
this
mundo y
moment
por eso
in the world, and that is
si alguien conoce alguna
why, if
experiencia,
anybody
pues
knows of
es
another
un
experience
momento
similar to
también
this,
para compartirlo.
it might be a nice moment to be able to
También
share it.
se ha entrado, República
We have
Dominicana
also,
se ha preparado y ha
Dominican
apostado. El
Republic has
Ministerio de
also
Agricultura,
prepared and
Dirección
contributed,
General
the
de
Ministry of
Ganadería,
Agriculture
sí,
and the General
realmente que han
Directory of
apostado, ¿verdad?
Livestock.
Para aplicar
They
todas
have
estas
contributed
medidas
to apply all these measures
y poder
and
erradicar
to be able to eradicate
la enfermedad y aplicar todas estas
the
medidas
illness, and to be able to apply
para que
all
no
those
la
measures so
plaga o
that the
esta
pest
enfermedad
or this illness, transporting illness, might not be able to leave the Dominican Republic, that it might be contained within the Dominican Republic. Other events in which we have supported, as we mentioned before, our mission is merely to support, to be there in the support to the Ministries of Agriculture and Livestock in everything that has to do with their plans for animal health. In the case of the bollworm, we have been present with as OIRSA, as well as other institutions. As you know, this is not a fight that we're going to do in one sector, but it's something that we have to do all together to be able to reach the objectives. In this case, OIRSA supports organizations in other ways. We have been there supporting the dispersion centers that sterilize them, and we have gotten involved in that. Talking about talking about animal health, the areas of animal health. We have also carried out events on behalf of the Directory of Animal Health of the OIRSA, like the different workshops, preparing, always preparing our officials from the Ministries of Agriculture, preparing them to get ready and let us know how an illness can attack us. How can we identify those threats so that in due moment be able to counteract it and apply the measures, and not to delay too much in applying the measures. Many times, delaying us in the application of the measures might take us and lead not to be too effective. And this is something that we do in all the protocols that we carry out, and it's precisely for that. The other events, recent events, in the case of the animal health specifically, with outbreaks from the Mediterranean fly. In this case, to mention successful management that the Dominican Republic had in managing in record time the eradication of an outbreak. This is something new. That it's not a transitory. Let's not call it an outbreak as such. A transitory entrance that in the fruit, the fruit fly. But the Dominican Republic did it in a record time, and it is a story of success that is presented in this occasion. Another event that we have been working on is to prepare our canine units
we are doing.
In the different countries to be able to detect those threats. There, in the rest of the countries, to the introduction of these threats into the different countries of the region of the OIRSA that already have their canine binomium, but we have carried out the introduction of different aromas, not only the fruit, not only the aroma of the fruit, of the orange or the apple, of the meat of the dairies, but we have also been doing the introduction of the aromas of the specific pests or specific infections. In this case, we have worked a couple of workshops in which we have been able, both in Nicaragua as well as in Costa Rica, to carry out the introduction of the snail. So our canine units can identify the different risks or ways of introduction of risk of a pest or an illness, but in this case also the aroma of the pest itself, of the snail, if there is a snail. As a matter of fact, we have already detected, some canine units have already detected snails precisely. We have worked on that, and we have carried out those workshops both in Costa Rica as well as in Nicaragua.
And we've also
talleres para la impronta del
held some
aroma
workshops
del gusano
on
barrenador.
imprinting the aroma
También
of the
hemos realizado
screwworm.
ya un par
We've
de
already
talleres como
organized
mencionaba,
a few
para que ellos
workshops
puedan
in that
detectar
sense so that
el
they can
aroma.
learn to
Ha sido
detect the smell.
completamente
It has
efectivo.
been very
Hemos
effective,
tenido
and
importantes
we've had
hallazgos y
important
una
findings and
gran ayuda
outcomes.
para nuestros
It's
inspectores
been great
que
help
están realizando
for our
desarrollo en el
inspectors.
ganado propiamente. De hecho,
And this is
hemos
especially
ya con el
with
apoyo
cattle for
siempre
the
del
screwworm,
USDA,
but always with the
hemos
support of
ya estamos
USDA.
preparando y
We
trabajando
are
con unidades
also
caninos
working
especializadas
with
y trabajando
canine binomes that
exclusivamente
are specialized on
con
that
inspección de
and
ganado.
exclusively working on
En
inspecting
algunos
cattle
países y en algunos
in
puntos
some
específicos.
countries and
Fuertemente,
specific
por ejemplo,
points.
en México,
Sometimes
pero
more
también
strongly,
estamos
such as
en
Mexico,
Guatemala, El
focusing on
Salvador,
them, but also in
Honduras en este
Guatemala,
momento.
El Salvador, Honduras as
Unidades
well,
caninas específicas.
with
En los demás
specific
países, todas
canine
nuestras unidades caninas, todas
community
las unidades
units.
caninas
In the other
que
countries,
tienen la
all
impronta del
the
aroma de gusano
units
barrenador
have
en el
that
ganado.
imprinting of the giant
En
African
cuanto a
snail smell
tratamos de que
and
todas
the
las medidas
screwworm.
desde la
We
Dirección
always
Regional de Servicios
achieve or strive
Cuarentenarios,
for
el país
having our
realiza una
quarantine
armonización,
services
¿verdad? Para que todas
harmonized
las
or
medidas puedan
standardized
ser
through the
aplicadas
region at OER.
de
So we want
manera
all our measures
armonizada,
to be
¿verdad?
applied in a
Y
standardized
el mismo
manner,
procedimiento que nosotros
so that
vamos
the
a
same
realizar
procedure that
en un puerto o en
we
una frontera
apply
como
in
Tecumumá,
a
por ejemplo, lo
certain
mismo hagamos
uh,
que es la
area
frontera entre
or
México y
border,
Guatemala,
if
también
it's
lo hagamos con
between
ese
Mexico and
procedimiento
Guatemala, the
en una
same exact
frontera
procedure should be
en
applied
Pasacanoa, frontera
in the
con Panamá y
border
Costa Rica,
between
por
Panama and Costa
mencionar
Rica,
algunas,
just to
¿verdad?
give some
Igual
examples.
lo mismo hagamos en el puerto de
So
La Aurora en
anything we
Guatemala
do in an airport in La
que en
Aurora in
Panamá o en
Guatemala and
Santa
also in
María de Costa
Tocumen in
Rica.
Panama or Juan Santa Maria in Costa Rica, all the same
En cuanto
procedures.
a labores propiamente
As
que
for
realizamos
the specific
en
tasks
diferentes
we have
fronteras,
in different borders,
realizamos las inspecciones no intrusivas
we do non-intrusive
incorporando las
inspections,
diferentes tecnologías. Las no
incorporating
intrusivas
different
utilizando los rayos
technologies.
X,
For
¿verdad?
non-intrusive, we
Para la
use
inspección
X-rays
de equipaje
to
y también
inspect
las unidades
equipment
caninas.
and the
Son las
canine
dos
units.
tecnologías que se utilizan
These are
y
the
son las
two
disponibles en el
non-intrusive
mundo ya,
technologies, and these
¿verdad?
are
Que es lo que se ha
widely
trabajado más
available
activamente
worldwide.
y
It's
que
something
nosotros
that has been massively
ya
used,
hemos incorporado.
and
Ha
we have
tenido
incorporated them.
franco crecimiento, ¿verdad?
They have
Desde el
actually been
2017
increasing
y después
since
del
2017 quite
2020
strongly. And after
hemos crecido
2020,
grandemente
of
en
course,
la incorporación
we've
de estas
grown
nuevas tecnologías que
exponentially
son
in
las unidades
incorporating
caninas.
all
Y
these
también las
technologies,
inspecciones
especially
intrusivas que no
canine
pueden
units. And we
realmente
also have
ser
intrusive
sustituidas,
inspections.
¿verdad? Entonces,
And
la
these can never
inspección
be
de aeronaves,
replaced.
inspección de buques,
So there's
de buques
airline
pasajeros y graneleros,
aircraft inspection of
los que
vessels,
transportan
large
carga general y
freighters,
contenedores. Y las
and
inspecciones, las
containers,
inspecciones terrestres,
and
de
land
autobuses,
inspections as
de
well.
vehículos particulares,
Buses,
¿verdad? Este comercio que se
vehicles,
está moviendo en
individual
los valles
vehicles, and
transfrontaleros.
all the trade that is moving along the borders.
Y mencionarles aquí un poco, ¿verdad? Las
And
diferentes
also just to
actividades,
give
las
you
inspecciones
some
que realizamos
examples of the
y cómo terminan.
inspections and
Tanto vemos las
activities
unidades
we have,
caninas
and so there you
en la
have
parte
some
izquierda,
pictures, the
superior
canine
izquierda, vemos las
unit
unidades
at the
caninas
top
y en la
left,
parte
and
inferior
bottom
izquierda
left you see
la inspección con
the
rayos X
X-ray
y las
machines,
consecuencias de esto, ¿verdad?
and then
La detección
consequences,
de esas vías de riesgo.
detection of areas
Se
of
hace el
risk.
análisis y si
And
esas
so
vías
then
realmente representan
it's
un riesgo
analyzed to
para
see
el
whether that
país
is
ya
actually a
definido
risk for the
por
country
las
defined
autoridades,
by the
entonces se
authorities.
procede a hacer su
If
liberación,
so,
la liberación del producto
it
o aplicar
is
una medida de mitigación
either
o la
dispatched or
destrucción del
there's a
producto,
mitigation
¿verdad? Como
measure
lo
or
indican los
the
manuales.
product is destroyed,
Están
as
las diferentes
manuals
actividades
state.
realizándose en
Here we
aviones,
see again other activities, inspecting aircraft,
en autobuses,
buses,
contenedores y
containers,
su respectivo diagnóstico de las plagas,
and
que es muy
also
importante, ¿verdad? Por
intercepting and
tener
diagnosing or
esos
assessing
diagnósticos
the
certeros
pests.
que
That's very
necesitamos
important to
para
be sure,
tomar las
um,
medidas
so that we can take the
cuarentenarias
measures and the
adecuadas y
quarantine
oportunas.
measures at the time needed.
Las diferentes otras medidas
Then
que
we have
realizamos,
other
¿verdad?
measures
Son
here,
tapetes sanitarios en los
such
diferentes
as having
aeropuertos. Esta
specific
es una medida más,
sanitary
¿verdad?
mats in airports. This is another measure. You see these types of mats or carpets, and these are just another form of control. You might think that it doesn't work, but it is a quarantine measure that will help. Again, we're talking about controlling in every way we can, covering every aspect. So this is looking at shoes, non-intrusive inspection. If a dog catches something, the x-rays, it all adds up, as I began saying in my presentation. And to the right, you see different things we have found in vehicles and machinery. They represent a great risk, as you may know, those who work in quarantine matters. These types of vehicles have great risks. You can see that they transport dead and live animals. Many times you'll see these used vehicles and other types of machinery where they bring all kinds of risks in. And we continue with our canine units. We're working on detection still, and it's always interesting how much you can transport as a passenger from one country to the other. You don't just bring in plants or souvenirs. Some people have all kinds of food, salami in their bags, in their suitcases. There's a full pig in one suitcase in that picture, people carrying eggs, whether fertile or not. You see dried or dehydrated iguanas. So many risk areas. And this is how countries are preparing themselves. This is a reality in our countries using autoclaves and sterilizers for sterilization of international solid waste. We see the two images up there in the videos with different chambers and also incinerators considered as zero emissions. These are being incorporated already massively in the Dominican Republic, for example. So it's important to highlight this type of technology as it is zero emissions. And other measures that we are using with OIRSA that again add up to anything else we can do. These are measures that can be applied on the field, but also prevention, all kinds of prevention, the media alerting the population and passengers so that they may be aware if we are moving around in different risk pathways that we understand that. And to close, just to mention what does it mean to have a quarantine treatment? Of course, quarantine treatments are a fundamental tool to facilitate international trade. If we didn't have quarantines, we wouldn't have many options. If a vessel were to come to a port or an aircraft to an airport, and we don't have mitigation measures for any risks that we may detect, the only option left is to return the product back to the country of origin or destroy it. And of course, the worst case scenario would be to accept the risk of having a pest or a disease enter the country. With that, I close. And I'm open to your questions. Thank you very much for your attention and the opportunity. Thank you, Ivan. Wonderful presentation. Thanks for all your experience and all the information. We'll leave the questions to the very end. We have a panel for questions and answers, but I do encourage everyone to ask questions through the chat box or the Q&A box specifically, so that we can monitor and write down your questions and ask them to our panelists in due time. Now we will continue with our next presentation. It will be about Mexico's experience in terms of border inspection
Y
and
está a
control at
cargo
ports and
de la
airports.
doctora
It will
Sandra
be
Mónica
by
Corona
Dr. Sandra
Colbert.
Mónica Corona Colbera.
Ella es egresada de la Facultad de
She
Medicina Veterinaria y Zootecnia
studied veterinary
en el
medicine
año
and
2002.
zootechnia. In
Ingresó
2002,
al
she
Servicio de
graduated
Garantía,
and
Sanidad,
started
Inocuidad
working
y
with
Calidad
the uh,
Agroalimentaria.
agri-food
Lleva
quality
23
and food
años de
safety
servicio
system.
laborando
She
en la
has
Dirección
been
de
working for
Servicios de Salud
23 years in the
Puertos,
quarantine
Aeropuertos
service
y Fronteras
area at
de la
ports,
Dirección
airports,
General de
and borders
Inspección
under
Fitosanitaria.
the General Phytosanitary
Actualmente
Inspection
se
Directorate.
desempeña en la
She is
Subdirección de Servicios
currently
Veterinarios
the
en
Deputy
Fronteras,
Director of Quarantine
adscrito
Services
a las
in
oficinas
borders
de Inspección
and caters to different
Agropecuaria que se
agricultural
ubican en la
inspection
frontera norte
offices located
del
in the
Centro de
north
México
border
y el puerto
of
de
Mexico
Lázaro Cárdenas,
and the port of
trabajando
Lázaro
en el servicio
Cárdenas,
de
where
inspección.
she helps
Con
with
esto,
inspection
le dejo
services.
con la doctora
And now I give
Sandra.
the floor
Doctora,
to Dr.
voy
Sandra.
a
I
compartir
will
la
share the
presentación
screen
suya y usted me va
so that we can see your
indicando
presentation and you let me know when I
cuando
switch
pase las
slides.
diapositivas. Un segundo.
Just a moment to share the screen.
Un segundo, vamos a ver.
Just a moment.
Ahora sí. Adelante, doctora.
Ready, you may go
¿Qué
ahead,
tal?
Doctor.
Buen día, ¿me escucha?
Thank you. Good
Sí, la
morning. Can you hear me? We do.
Buen día a todos. Bueno,
Good
vamos a
morning,
platicar un
everyone.
poco acerca de la
I
vigilancia
will
y
talk
control en los
about
aeropuertos y fronteras.
surveillance and
La
control at
siguiente, por
ports,
favor.
airports, and borders.
Bueno, antes que nada vamos a hablar
First
acerca
of all, I
de la
want to
misión y visión
talk about the
del Servicio
mission
Nacional
and
de
vision
Calidad
of our
y
national
Calidad
service for
Agroalimentaria.
safety,
La
food
misión
safety,
del
quality,
SENACICA
and
es
health.
principalmente proteger la
SENACICA.
agricultura
Our
nacional
mission is to protect
a
national
través de la
agriculture
aplicación de
systems
medidas
by
sanitarias,
applying sanitary measures
de inocuidad y de calidad.
for food
Con qué
safety
finalidad?
and
Para que esto
quality.
contribuya a la
The
salud
aim is
agroalimentaria,
to contribute to
al bienestar
food
de los
safety,
productores,
to the
consumidores,
well-being of producers and
apoyando el
consumers, and
desarrollo de
therefore
las cadenas
the development
productivas.
of productive
Ahora bien,
chains in
como
the country.
visión, el SENACICA se busca que
Our
sea una
vision
institución
is
renovada,
to be
con un
a renewed
reconocimiento
institution
nacional e internacional,
recognized
que
nationally and
genere valor para
internationally
la sociedad,
to provide value
esto
for
a
society.
través de la mejora
This would
continua
be done through
de las
continuous
plataformas, tanto
improvement of our different
técnico-científicas,
technical and
legales
scientific
y administrativas,
and legal and
que es lo que
administrative
contribuyan al
platforms,
gasto
which all
nacional
contribute to
y
our
perdón,
nation's
a la
economy
facilitación
and
del
to
comercio
facilitate
agroalimentario.
trade in the
Ahora
agricultural
bien,
sector.
dentro de este servicio se encuentra la
As part
Dirección
of this
General de
service, we
Inspección
have the General
Fitosanitaria.
Directorate for
¿Cuáles son los
Phytosanitary
objetivos de
Inspection.
esta dirección? Es asegurar
This
el cumplimiento de
direction
los requisitos
is
sanitarios,
aiming to improve, to ensure
establecidos
that we
desde el
are meeting
Tratado
all the
Internacional
sanitary
sobre Agua para
requirements
Comercio,
under
las
the
mercancías y
agreement
exportaciones están
for
sujetas a
imports and
regulación por parte de
exports
la
that are
Secretaría de
subject to
Agricultura.
regulation under our
¿Cuáles
Secretariat
son
of
las misiones del
Agriculture
certificado de
and the
origen
mission
para
of the
exportación nacional?
Certificate of
Mediante
Origin
la revisión
for
tanto
exports
documental
by
como de la
reviewing
inspección física
documentation,
y
by
por ende con
physical
la
inspection,
certificación de las
and
mercancías y del
therefore providing
tratamiento, esto a través de la
certification
Ventanilla
for the
Interamericana
different
de Comercio
uh,
Exterior, para
commodities and
revisarlas
products through
en los
our
diferentes puntos de ingreso al
foreign
país,
trade office.
así como
We
la
also inspect
certificación
anything
por
that enters the
suministros
country,
e
and we
importación
provide
de insumos.
certification for import,
Dentro de esta
exports,
Dirección
and
General
pets.
de Inspección Fitosanitaria
Under
se
our
encuentra la Dirección de Servicios
phytosanitary
Veterinarios en
inspection, we
Puertos,
also have the
Aeropuertos y Fronteras,
quarantine
la
service
cual tiene como
office for
objetivo
ports, airports,
dirigir
and
y
borders.
establecer los planes y
This
programas
office
del
looks
Servicio de
to
Inspección,
establish all
Verificación
the
y
plans and
Certificación
programs for the service, all
en
the
todos los
verification
puntos de
and
ingreso a través
certification
de
at
los
the different
puertos,
points of
aeropuertos y las
entry through
fronteras.
ports,
¿Con qué
airports, and
finalidad?
borders,
Con el propósito de
always with
garantizar
an aim to
una eficiencia operativa,
guarantee
evitar
operational
o anular
efficiency
el ingreso de
and
plagas
to
o
avoid
enfermedades que
any
pongan en
pests or
riesgo
diseases
al
entering the
sector
country
agropecuario,
that
agrícola
might
y
put
pesquero
our
local.
agricultural and fishing
Contamos con
sectors at
37
risk.
oficinas de
We have
inspección de sanidad
97
agropecuaria
agricultural safety or health and safety inspection offices, which work with our quarantine services offices at ports and airports, and also coordinating with our quarantine services at borders. We also have 1,015 employees under all these offices, and we have all kinds of assistant staff, 694 through ICA, and OPORMEX 41, and official staff of 280 people. Here we have a map of Mexico, and we see how the different offices are distributed throughout the country. We have 28 borders, 44 airports, 25 ports, for a total of 97 inspection offices. We are considered the first line of defense to avoid the entry of pests and diseases to our country. Talking about ASF and African swine fever, we have a landscape of the current situation here. The WOA, World Organization for Animal Health, has reported 71 affected countries. It's important to be aware of this precisely because of the trade and different commercial exchanges with countries. As we heard in our previous presentation, there are countries that have the disease, such as Dominican Republic, China, Germany, and others. So the points of entry have to be very alert to this situation to avoid the entry of any pests. And for that, we apply the sanitary measures that help mitigate risks. Now, looking at the measures implemented to reduce the risk of ASF entering the country, on August 15th, 2019, there was a publication in the official journal of the Federation of the agreement establishing the zoosanitary measures to prevent the introduction of the virus that causes African swine fever to the territory of Mexico. Part of the measures implemented at the time under Senacica, we started with a national emergency device for animal health. This is part of a mega simulation of ASF, and it had the purpose of deploying all the resources of Senacica to assess the capacity to respond to a health emergency. We activated the Emergency Health Operations Center to assess its command center and response protocols. We coordinated and followed up with all federal actors involved to mitigate the risk or eliminate any risk. And we also assessed and applied a communications plan internally and externally to ensure that the productive sector in Mexico was kept abreast of the situation. This was a very important device or mechanism. It helped us ensure participation of different sectors, so that included the government sector, but also private initiatives. Now, as for the different measures that we have in the points of entry in our country, we have to talk about two aspects: commercial imports and touristic or tourism imports. First of all, we have our digital window for foreign trade in Mexico, and it has two stages in this digital platform. First, the review of documentation, all the information provided by users, they upload it to our digital window in order to ensure or verify that they are complying with all the requirements as per our modules. Once the user has uploaded all their information, it is verified by our staff located in different points of entry. So just to ensure that all requirements are met, looking at the information of importer, exporters, the tariff fractions under the agreement I mentioned before, just to be sure that everything is in place and correct, that it is actually the merchandise, that the number or the quantity and units of measure of the products and the certificate of import. Once all that information has been provided and reviewed, looking at the certificate, ensuring that the system has everything correctly, also looking at the payment of duties to issue the import certificate. If it is all complied with, it goes to the second stage, which would be the physical inspection. If there is anything that has not been fulfilled as required under the phytosanitary measures, users are asked to solve the situation and to add any missing information or correct anything necessary. They have 5 days to do so, to respond to that request. And if they do fulfill all the criteria afterwards, then again, they are provided with their certificate, a pre-allocation of the certificate. And then we go to the second stage, which would be the physical inspection. And so the user would bring all the certificate and the load, the products, so that an official can review it. All documentation and the products must be presented physically so that the people that are working in the different points of entry can actually verify this. If the merchandise meets all the requirements, a certificate is issued, a certificate of import. And if not, then there is a rejection letter or form, and this rejection form can lead to specific measures. It could be the return of the product to conditioning, to adapt it, or even destruction or incineration. So as part of the procedures for import, we have to talk about live animals. The procedure for live animals also includes, of course, a documentation review. So first looking at all the documentation for the merchandise, and then the staff verifies that everything is in order from the country of origin as per the requirement sheet. As part of the requirements, they have to include all this in the certificate of origin, which is the information on the number of animals, number of males and females, the specific identification for each, and the sanitary status, the health status. So they need to have certain tests required by Mexico for their entry. So to ensure that they don't have influenza or other diseases in the place of origin. Then the animals are inspected in the corrals that are located, in this case, in the American side. And before inspecting the animals, of course, they look at the conditions of their pens, that everything is clean and apt for inspection. The officials that do the inspection have to wear the necessary protection equipment, boots, and overalls to assess the animals, and they have a worksheet that allows them to verify that the animals are meeting all the requirements. If you can see the pictures, they have all the inspection of the animal from the head to the tail to ensure they have no signs of disease. In this specific case, verifying no problems in their eyes, their head, if they could have atrophic rhinitis, so just checking that they have no abscesses, that they walk correctly, that there's no gait abnormalities or if there's any wounds or even reproductive problems such as vulvar infections or in ectoparasites and inspecting the rectal area as well. So once 100% of the animals are assessed, they also verify identification for each. If there's any animal that does not comply with the requirements, it is separated from the rest that do meet the requirements and can be imported. Animals that are ready for import before embarking have to we have to verify that the transport itself is clean and ready for them so that the animals can arrive and get on the truck to be able to provide a certificate. As we said, once the user uploads the information to our platform, if there are any animals that were rejected for any situations that are not necessarily a health matter, the whole paperwork is canceled so that the user can modify it and add the right information, the real information of animals that will actually be imported. The certificate is issued, and then it states, of course, the correct number of animals with any modifications in the system that will actually be imported. And then that is uploaded and reflected so that they may be taken to their final destination. That's for live animals, and of course, looking at animal well-being as well. So that is for live animals. As for any products and the process to import meat and innards and sub or byproducts, our staff, as we said, looks first at all the information, verifying that the paperwork is correct, and looking at annexes and certificates, just to be sure that everything is correct. Once that is uploaded, we have to verify that the processing plant is also included in our system, that it has the permits. For these plants to be added, they have to participate. Well, our office participates in going to visit the plants where we have trade to ensure that they meet the requirements to export to Mexico. Once they do meet all the requirements, these are authorized. They have their permit and they are allowed to export to our country. That's one of the areas that have to be verified, looking at the different batches, the type of merchandise, if it is refrigerated or frozen. So looking at all that, all those details, and also for the documentary verification, we have to assess the weight, quantities, the dates that are stated. If there are any ranges, looking at the slaughter dates, processing, and any expiration if it applies. Once they have all that, the recommendation is for users to also, before bringing in the merchandise, to verify the system, looking at the sanitary status, the health status for these products, because there could be changes at any time. For example, with avian influenza, with highly pathogenic avian influenza currently right now in the United States, and so status of certain products can change constantly. Countries notify these types of status changes if it is by state, province, or county. All this information has to flow continuously and freely, because at a certain point, if they do have any shipments entering the country, if the user had verified at some point that the country was allowed to bring in certain merchandise, but because of diseases such as foot and mouth disease or influenza, it could be that they are no longer allowed. And so the products cannot enter and have to be returned to the country of origin. And so when the physical inspection of meat products happens, there's occasions where the sheets themselves say that depending on the country, the products have to be treated at origin. So before anything else, we have to verify that they are correctly prepared at origin and that it is cut in the presence of our colleagues, and just to ensure that the inspection of the merchandise will have everything that it needs, the area where it will happen. It has to be clean, it has to be a lab with the right temperature. Everything has to be controlled. If it's frozen products, of course, that the thawing chamber also has the right temperature, that any knives that will be used are sterilized. And once all that is there, the merchandise is allowed to enter the point of entry, so it may be reviewed in the area, the corresponding area. So the products are separated. It could be in boxes and crates, or it could be carcasses or half carcasses. So the inspection for these types of products has to be based on our official standards of Mexico 030-1995. It talks about the inspection of carcasses, meats, and innards in the different areas of inspection. Once all this is deconsolidated or separated and everything has been reviewed, looking at batches, verifying the plant of origin and the facility of origin, ensuring that everything comes with their seal and certificate in the crate or box or the carcass. And we verify traceability, the country of origin, batch, slaughter dates, production dates, expiration dates if applicable, temperatures of the carcasses, that there's no burns, that and there's no processes that impede its import. There should be no bruising or any problems with the products, that it's not decomposing, or any other products or any situation that would not allow it to enter the country. After the inspection is done, following the worksheet, a certain number of products are selected, taken to the lab to have our colleagues review them. If it is frozen meat, it has to be thawed to be able to analyze it as necessary, or the organoleptic analysis, aroma, consistency of product. There's a sample taken, 250 grams, and to do the inspection of the merchandise.
And later we take the product that is going to be sent to the lab, sorry, and we take the samples that are going to be sent to the lab. And with that, we have to identify it. We have to put the labels with the data that is requested by the lab, as well as the toxicological analysis to which that is going to be applied to the product. And in as much the merchandise is returned, once everything that had to be done is done for the inspection, we return the cargo to the truck, and if there is compliance, well, then that load is released. Next one, please.
Hablamos aquí un poco, vamos a hablar de en cuanto a la verificación.
Here we're going to talk a little bit about the verification at origin, but in this case for animals. We have had that the importer wants to carry out this inspection at origin. They have to request it with 20 days anticipation, 20 calendar days to which the services are requested. Once it is authorized according to Article 45 of the law and regulation for animal health, well, a commission of people is appointed so that they can travel to the country and we can carry out the inspection of the animals of the site to verify the compliance, both documentary as well as physical for the document. The importer has to provide everything so that at the moment that the staff is there, they might be able to carry out the necessary activities. In this case, we have imports from 2020 to 2025 of animals that have been brought both from the United States as well as from Canada and from Denmark also. Here in the chart, we can appreciate some data for import under the scheme of verification at origin of these animals. And well, these are the most recent cases that we have from Denmark. It was in 2024, and number of events 5 with 320 heads of cattle imported, and another event in 2025 of 610 heads of cattle imported. This scheme is also a very important scheme that is used, with which the users can introduce some types of merchandises, animals, or in this case, it can also be beef. Next one, please. Out of the information that we have been reviewing, here we have some statistics of commercial import or trade import. In this case, swine products from 2024 to 2025. The main points of introduction have been through Tijuana or by Ciudad Juárez and by the city of inspection of Nuevo León and Nuevo Laredo, and also by Reynosa. In regard to animals, the majority of animals that come into the country are from the United States, and after that, Canada, and then some from Denmark. In regard to beef products, we also have that the majority has been imported from the United States, from Canada, and lesser proportion from Spain, Chile, and Brazil. And other products that have been imported, well, we have standing animals, beef, waste, guts, and other products. And as we commented, now we're going to talk about the commercial and private aircrafts. This according to the agreement that establishes the phytosanitary to avoid the introduction of the ASF, to the Mexican territories. Well, within the measures that have been implemented in this agreement that published in 2019 is that we have set at airports sanitary rugs. The sanitary rugs, we can see that at this moment we have the allocation of 24,895 aircraft, sanitary rugs, the disinfection of warehouses and food. There have been a destruction of 587 tons, the destruction of garbage, also the physical inspections, both intrusive and non-intrusive, of certain luggages. Here we have that aircrafts that have been inspected at 24,895. The amount of passengers that have been inspected, 2,681,864. And this is luggage and luggage that is accompanying passengers. We have 6,433,000. 690.
La inspección física
The
se
physical
hace,
inspection
para la
is
revisión de
done
equipajes
in the
o
area of
desde
of
rayos
luggage.
X
It's
o por medio
through
de
X-rays
unidades
or
caninas con las que se cuentan
with
en
the
los
use of canine units that we have
territorios
in
del
different
país,
points of admission
así
to the
como la
country,
inspección de perros
as
y
well as
gatos
the inspection
con la
of
finalidad de evitar
dogs
que
and
no
cats
traigan
with the
pues
intention of seeing that they don't have
parásitos o
any
algunas
parasites on them
enfermedades que pudieran
or any
circular.
illnesses that might be
Y la destrucción
introduced
por
into the country.
incineración
And the
de
destruction
aquellos
by
productos retenidos
incineration of those
que han sido
products that have been
de 27.24 toneladas de productos
27.26 tons
de origen
products that have been
porcino.
seized
Aquí tenemos el top
based
5
on
de las
product
audiencias por las
porcine
cuales se
fine
llevan a
products.
cabo la
So here
mayor
we have
cantidad de detección
the places where we have the majority of the detections of the products.
Tenemos
We
1,877
have
kilogramos del aeropuerto
1,877
internacional de la
kilograms
Ciudad de
through the
México,
International Airport of the City of
también
Mexico,
por la Oficina de
also
Inspección
through the
Sanitaria
City
Agropecuaria de
of
Cancún con
Agro-Livestock
253
Inspection
kilogramos,
Office of
pues sí,
Cancun
en Tijuana con
with
422
543
kilogramos,
kilograms, in
el
Tijuana with
Aeropuerto
422
Internacional
kilograms,
Felipe Ángeles,
the International
también
Airport Felipe Arcena
258
also
kilogramos y
with
82
158 kilograms
la aduana
and
mexicana
82 kilograms
del
through the
Aeropuerto
customs,
Internacional Felipe
load
Ángeles.
customs of the
Todos
Felipe Angel
estos,
International Airport.
considerando
All
los
this
vuelos,
taking into
algunos
consideration
vuelos que son directos de
some flights
países
that
de
are coming
riesgo,
directly from
tales
high-risk
como
countries,
China
such as the case
o
of
Alemania,
China
y
or
la
Germany,
destrucción de
and the
comisariados,
destruction
que es
of
lo que comentábamos, en este caso, pues los
of
517.8
luggage, which is what
toneladas,
we were
tanto
mentioning, of
del Aeropuerto Internacional de
518,000
la Ciudad de México,
tons,
Cancún,
517
Tulum,
tons
Guadalajara,
from the
y en este
International Airport of
caso,
Mexico, Tulum,
de la
Guadalajara,
oficina
in
de
this
Monterrey.
case, also in the office
Esta
of Monterrey.
información es del
So this
27 de agosto
information
del 2018
is updated to
al
August
3
the
de agosto
27th, 2018,
del presente
from
año.
August the 27th, 2018 to August the 3rd of this year.
La siguiente, por favor.
Next slide, please.
Ahora bien, las medidas aplicadas a embarcaciones de carga y
Now,
turísticas
the measures applied for
en los 17 puertos se
vessels
realizan
of cargo and tourists, well, in the ports,
medidas
we carry out
sanitarias.
the following
Como
sanitary
comentaba,
measures, as mentioned
compañero de OIRSA, pues aquí
by the
también
colleague of OISA.
se verifican la cuestión de la colocación de tapetes sanitarios,
We have
la participación
worked
del
on
personal
allocating the sanitary mats
en los procedimientos de
or rugs,
plática,
the
en los
sanitary
sellados de
and
gambusas,
practices,
las bodegas de alimentos que se
the
llevan
closing of gambusas, which is
en las
warehouses
embarcaciones,
that are in the
desinfección de
vessels,
basura
the
inorgánica
disinfection of
y la
inorganic
supervisión
garbage or
para que
trash,
no se
and the
desembarquen
supervision so
alimentos
that
o basura que se
there are
desechen
no
y la
food
destrucción de
unloaded,
productos
and the
retenidos.
destruction of
Aquí podemos ver
seized products. Here we can
en
see,
cuanto a los datos estadísticos de
in regard to the
embarcaciones,
statistical data on the
tenemos
vessels, we have
14.819
14,819 vessels that were worked on
tanto de
or
manera fija
inspected.
como
The allocation
de
of
manera
sanitary
conforme va porque en
mats,
determinados
both fixed as well as
puertos no se puede dejar
ambulatory, because in some of the ports we cannot leave those
el tapete, entonces hay que estar
mats
poniendo
permanently there, so we have to be putting and taking them off constantly, and the sealing of the warehouses.
Considerando lo que se señala
In this case,
en
taking into
los
consideration what is
pues es
considered in the
importante
agreements,
tener comunicación
it is very
con
important to
los
have
con
communication with
con las navieras de los diferentes
the vessel
puertos
companies
para
from
ver
the different ports, so to
los
see
diferentes puntos por los cuales han estado tocando
the different points
esas embarcaciones.
that the
En
different
este
ports that these
caso,
vessels have
llegado
been
pues
landing in.
embarcaciones
And in this case,
de
we have had
Veracruz,
uh,
Manzanillo,
vessels coming into Veracruz, Manzanillo, Altamira,
y
and
el
Mazatlan.
sellado de gambusas,
And the
pues aquí también
seizure of
tenemos
the warehouses, well, we also have
sellados, que en este
the
caso
number of
sellados de
sealings that we
gambusas
did. In this case, we
fueron
did sealings of
8,799
warehouses. It was 8,799
la
warehouses that were
colocación de
sealed.
tapetes sanitarios
The
fueron
allocation of sanitary
14,747 y
mats
pues las
was
embarcaciones fueron
14,747,
14,819.
and the disembarks
Tenemos
were
los datos de
14,819.
Manzanillo, Veracruz,
Both, we have the data
Ensenada,
both Manzanillo,
Altamira.
Veracruz, Ensenada, Altamira, and Mazatlan.
La siguiente, por favor.
Next slide, please.
Bueno, dentro de los métodos, pues no
Within
intrusivos,
the
Doctora,
non-intrusive methods,
disculpe, quedan
doctor,
5
sorry,
minutos.
Sí,
You have 5
gracias.
minutes left. Yes,
Bueno,
thank
dentro
you.
de los métodos no intrusivos
Within the
tenemos la
non-intrusive methods,
participación
we'll
de
have
las
also the
unidades
participation of the
móviles
canine units
en los diferentes puntos de ingreso. En este
in the
caso se
different
han
arrival
asignado
points.
72
In this case, they have
elementos para
been,
reforzar la
we have
inspección
assigned 72
de
canine units
pasajeros y
to
mercancías
reinforce
en
the
algunos
inspection of
países,
passengers and
en diferentes
merchandise
países, como podemos ver
in some of
aquí,
the different places, as we can see here,
Cozumel,
Cancun,
Mahahual,
Cozumel, Mahahual,
El Ceibo, Ciudad Hidalgo.
Hidalgo,
Esto,
different
como
places.
comentamos, bueno, tanto
And as we
en este
mentioned
caso
here,
como las unidades
both in
caninas
this case
como
as well as the
los
canine units
varios
as
equis,
well
pues son
as the X-rays,
muy, nos sirven mucho de apoyo para
they
poder
they
hacer la
help us
inspección
as support to be able to carry out a
las
good, a better
mercancías,
inspection of
como
the merchandise as well as of the
la participación de
passengers,
los compañeros de manera física a los diferentes
uh,
pasajeros
physically to the different
que desean
passengers.
ingresar mercancías para poder retener o en su caso
We
permitir
have been
que
able to find
los
merchandise that we
ingresen.
can
Y
seize
bueno, en
to
esta
avoid the
última
introduction.
diapositiva
And in this
podemos
last slide,
apreciar
we can appreciate
cómo ha ido incrementándose la
how
participación de
the participation of
las
the canine
unidades.
units
Esto
has been
en
introduced.
coadyuvancia
This
para evitar
in
el
assistance
ingreso de esta
to
toxina
avoid
y bueno, no solamente
the
por supuesto
introduction
esta toxina,
of
sino algunas otras
ASF, and not
enfermedades
only
como es el
ASF, but
caso
also
de
some other
usar un
illnesses,
ordenador
like in this
dañado
case of the
y como ustedes
screwworm,
saben, pues
the cattle
se lleva a
screwworm,
cabo el
uh,
control en el sureste del país.
and
Por
we
mi
carry out
parte
a control. On my
sería todo y
side,
quedo al pendiente
that'll
para
be all,
cualquier
and I
duda o
am
comentario.
at your disposition for any
Gracias.
comment or question that you might have. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias,
Thank
doctora.
you very much, doctor.
Excelente presentación.
Excellent presentation.
Vamos a
We
esperar
are going to
para
wait
las preguntas
till
al
the
final.
question and answer session at the end.
Antes de pasar al
Before going
siguiente
on to the next
expositor,
presenter,
solo quiero
I
recalcar
would just like to point out
nos han
that
reportado la presencia
they
de
have
SENASA
we
de
have been
Costa
reported
Rica, del
with the
SENASA
presence of
Paraguay,
SENASA of
del
Costa Rica, of
SENASA en
SENACO
Argentina,
Paraguay,
del
of
SENASA
SENAC
en
in
Perú,
Argentina
también la
and Peru,
presencia de
also
ASPE,
the
Santa
president of
Elena,
ASPE,
Ecuador.
Santa Elena,
Así
Ecuador.
que los invito
So
para
I
que sigan
invite
reportando
all
de
of you
qué
to continue on
instituciones nos
reporting
están
from what institutions
acompañando.
you're accompanying from,
Y bueno,
from,
vamos a
sorry.
continuar con la
And we're
siguiente
going to continue with the
presentación,
next
la cual
presentation, which is
está a
going to be
cargo del
in
doctor
charge of
Alonso
Dr. Alonso
Stefani,
Stefani,
donde pues él nos
where
va a contar la experiencia
he
de
is going to
República
tell us about the
Dominicana en
experience of the
cuanto a la
Dominican Republic in
inspección
regard
y
to the
la
inspection
vigilancia
and the
de
surveillance
la peste porcina en
for
fronteras
swine
y puertos
fever
aeropuertos.
in
Antes,
borders and
una breve
airports.
reseña del doctor
Before that,
Stefani.
a
Él
small
es médico
overview of
veterinario,
Dr. Stefani.
zootecnista,
He is a
la
veterinary doctor,
maestría la
isotechnician.
tiene en
He
producción
has
de
a master's
sanidad
degree in
animal.
production and sanitary
Además está a cargo
health. He is also in charge.
es oficial de salud
He's an
animal de
officer for
OIRSA en
animal health of
República
the ORISA in
Dominicana y
Dominican
coordinador
Republic
regional de sanidad
and regional
porcina.
coordinator for
También,
fever
además, tiene
coordination.
participación en
Apart from that, he
manejo de
has
la peste
participation in the
porcina
management of
africana
the African swine fever
en República Dominicana con
in Dominican
experiencia
Republic.
desde
Has
el
experience
inicio de la
since
emergencia,
the
ha
beginning of the emergency.
acompañado al
He has
Servicio
accompanied
Veterinario
the
Oficial al
official
diseño
veterinary
e
service in
implementación
the
de las
design and
medidas y acciones del
implementation of
programa de
the
control
actions
y
for the
erradicación de la
control and
enfermedad.
eradication of the African swine fever
Además,
in Dominican
regionalmente
Republic.
da
Additionally,
acompañamiento a la
he also
Dirección Regional de Salud
accompanies the
Animal en
National
OIRSA en la
Animal Health
constante elaboración de
Office in
propuestas e
Orissa and
iniciativas
the
que buscan
constant
fortalecer las capacidades de los servicios
initiatives that try
veterinarios
to
de los
strengthen
países
the
miembros
services of veterinary
para la
services in the member countries
implementación de
for the
medidas
implementation
preventivas
of
ante el ingreso de la
preventive
peste
measures,
porcina.
trying to avoid the
Em,
introduction of the African
Adelante,
swine
doctor
fever into
Stefani, es
the American
suya
continent.
la
Thank you. Go ahead,
pantalla.
Dr. Spani. The screen and the microphone
Hola,
are
muy
yours.
buenas tardes. Muchísimas
Hello, good
gracias,
afternoon. Thank you
Erika,
very much, Erika.
por la invitación, ¿verdad? Por
Thank
el
you for the
espacio,
invitation, for
para
giving me this
nosotros
space
desde el
for
OIRSA,
us at the OIRSA.
un motivo de felicidad y agradecimiento.
It is a reason for
el poder,
of
digamos
happiness
que,
and appreciation to be
participar,
able to
¿verdad? En
participate
estos eventos,
in these
en
events,
conjunto con el grupo interagencial
along with the
GFK.
interagency of the
Bien, en
DSK.
esta ocasión
In this
vamos
opportunity,
a, digamos, estar hablando
we are going to
muy
be talking
específicamente
very specifically
la
about
experiencia en la República
the
Dominicana
experience of
con
Dominican
el tema de la
Republic
peste porcina
with a
africana
matter related to
desde
African
el
swine fever
punto de vista del
from
control
the point of view
fronterizo.
of
¿Ok?
border control.
Nosotros,
We,
ok, nosotros, como sabemos
as we
desde
know,
julio 2021,
since
¿verdad?
July
Cuando se
2021,
detectó, se
we
reportó
detected and we
oficialmente
reported
la peste porcina
officially
africana en
the African
Dominicana.
swine fever in
Se han
Dominican
estado
Republic.
llevando a cabo
And we have been carrying out a whole series of actions.
Y eso
And
involucra, ¿verdad?,
this
el
involves
grupo interagencial. Primero,
the interagency
las
group.
instituciones nacionales
First,
de
the
apoyo a la violencia
international
se
institutions
reunieron, ¿verdad?, muchísimas veces en la mesa
have come together many
a tratar
times
de
at the table
diseñar
to try to
estas medidas.
design
Asimismo,
these
lo
measures.
hicieron
And they have also
grupos
done it
de organizaciones internacionales,
in groups of
quienes
international
todo un
organizations
tiempo lograron,
who, for a
digamos
while,
que, coordinar las
were
acciones de
able to
cada uno
coordinate the
y
actions of
a poder
that each
llevar a
one was
cabo
going to
en
carry out
función de la fortaleza
based
que
on the
cada uno
strengthening, on the
haya
strengths
identificado en
that
este
each one of them
momento.
have
Luego
identified.
de esto,
And
entonces
well,
se
after this,
empezaron a implementar estas
they
medidas
started
que
to
son
implement these
muchas de
measures
ellas
that
las
are
que
many of them
prevalecen
the ones that
al
still
día de
prevail
hoy.
nowadays.
Recuerdan aquel entonces
I remember at that
la
time,
Dirección Regional de Salud Animal
the
del
regional
OIRSA,
directory of the OIRSA,
unida con la Dirección Regional de Centros Cuarentarios también del OIRSA,
meeting also
sacaron
with the
las autoridades nacionales del
regional coordinator
Ministerio
of
de
the OIRSA, and
Agricultura y
here with the
Desarrollo Nacional y
Ministry of
Ganadería,
Agriculture, Agricultural
debatían
and Livestock,
sobre aquellas acciones,
were
¿verdad?,
debating about those
para
actions
primero controlar
to first control
el avance a nivel
the
nacional de la
advancement
enfermedad,
at a
pero
national level of
también
the illness, but also
para proteger
to protect
países de la región, ¿verdad?, los
the
amigos
countries of the
países
region,
de la región.
the brother
Y fue
countries of the
entonces
region.
cuando de allí
And that's
surgió la idea
when we came up with the idea
formar
of
e implementar
putting together and
inspecciones no
implementing
intrusivas con
a non-intrusive
unidades
inspection
caninas, como
with
decía
canine
aquí
units,
Hernando
as the engineer
Hernandez,
Hernandez was saying
pero
a few minutes
mirando
ago,
las salidas,
but looking
¿verdad?,
at the
para
departures
evitar así
to avoid,
bueno,
to
esta
thus
enfermedad
avoid
pudiera movilizarse
this
hacia
illness
otro
to move
país
to other
de la
countries
región.
in the region.
En ese momento,
At that moment,
bueno, las autoridades nacionales,
the
digamos que
national authorities
compraron la idea,
were
el OIRSA le
bought into
apostó
the
a eso
idea.
y
The
así
OISA
mismo
put its best on it,
iniciaron las
and
gestiones con
so therefore
aquellos países que en
began with
ese
a
momento tenían,
process
digamos,
in
la
those
mayor
countries that at that
experiencia
moment had the
cuando se
greatest
refería a
experience,
esta. Es
or
decir,
continue on having it.
México, que
Mexico, for
hay
example,
que mencionar al
we have to
CEACAN,
mention
antes de
the
SENACICA,
SECAN,
que desde ese momento ellos
that
lo
from that
apoyan
moment said,
República
yes,
Dominicana y en la
we
actualidad,
support
hoy
the
en
Dominican
día,
Republic, and
nos
still
siguen
today, nowadays,
dando su mano
they
amiga
continue on
al 100% hacia
lending
esa
a helping
iniciativa.
hand
Y también
100% to
Escuela
this
Canina
initiative.
de Panamá.
And also the
En
Canine
ese
School of
momento
Panama.
fueron las
At
dos
that
primeras
moment,
instancias que
those were the first two instances
apoyaron para
that
que República
supported
Dominicana pudiera tener
the Dominican Republic to be able
esta
to have
inspección no intrusiva en
this
salidas de
non-intrusive
territorio
inspection
mexicano.
in
Bueno, hacia 2022
departures.
también,
Coming into
digamos
2022
que
also,
las
let's say
autoridades
that
también de
the
Estados Unidos,
authorities of the United
de
States, of the
APHIS
USDA,
particularmente,
of the APHIS
necesitaron también el
particularly, they
apoyo
also
de
sat down at the table with the national authorities,
internacionales y también
with
compraron la
international
idea y
aids, and they also
aceptaron
bought into the
apoyar.
idea, and they
¿Ok?
decided to
De ahí
expand it.
nace lo que
And from there,
ahora les voy a
we have
comentar.
what I'm going to tell you now.
Ellos firmaron
They
convenios, ¿verdad?,
signed
con el Ministerio de
an
Agricultura,
agreement with
con
the
el
Ministry of
OIRSA,
Agriculture, with the
para
OISA,
apoyar
to
esta
support
serie de acciones. De ahí
this series of
nace
actions.
el
And from there,
convenio
we
para el
have the
control y
agreement
erradicación de la peste
for the
porcina
control and
africana en
eradication
República
of the
Dominicana,
African swine
firmado
fever in
hacia
the Dominican Republic,
2022.
is signed
En
in
ese
2022.
inicio, ¿verdad?, el
In that
OIRSA,
beginning,
con apoyo de SEACAN,
OISA,
formó
with the
las
support of
primeras
SACAN,
10
put together the first
unidades
10
caninas
canine units
que iban a trabajar
that were
en
going to
salida.
work in that in line.
Luego llega este proyecto y
Then we had this project come in,
al día de hoy se tienen
and to this day,
36 binomios
we have
caninos
36
que están ya
canine
formados
binomials
y
that have been put
operando.
together and operating.
¿Ok? Al día de hoy, bueno,
To
esta
this
unidad
day,
canina
this
al
canine
inicio no
unit
tenía
in the
solo
beginning didn't
la
have
proyección de los
any
binomios,
but
que
the
también el
projection of the
país
binomials,
tuvo
because the
que
country also had to
ir ganando esta experiencia y al día de hoy todavía el
win
gobierno
this
sigue
experience. And
ganando mucha
to
experiencia
this day,
sobre
they
el tema
continue on
de esta
winning a
unidad
lot of
canina que
experience
surgió
regarding this
así,
canine units that came
dada
about given that way,
emergencia. Entonces,
given this emergency.
al día de hoy no solo
So to
cuenta
this
con
day,
los binomios caninos, que
not
fue
only
lo
do
que
we have the
comentaron
canine
también
binomials that I'm
las
going
demás
to tell you
entidades
also,
que también ya
the other
hoy día
activities that are
creen y
also
respetan la unidad canina y siguen
that
trabajando
create and respect the
para
canine unit
fortalecerla.
that are
Pero además de los
strengthening.
binomios, hoy se cuenta con
But apart from the
instructores,
binomials, we now have
se cuenta con
instructors.
inspectores,
We have
que
inspectors.
digamos, al inicio no se contaba con esta
Then in the
figura,
beginning, we
hoy
didn't
sí,
have this figure,
aquel profesional
and it is that
que
professional
apoya y acompaña
that
al
supports and
binomio
accompanies the
para
binomial
Ya cuando hay una detección, ¿verdad?
so that when there is a detection,
entonces proceden a hacer
they
lo que es
proceed
la inspección ya intrusiva
to do the
de,
intrusive
pues, constatar
inspection and to
que
corroborate
un producto, ¿verdad? De origen animal que
that
se
the
encuentra
product,
en la maleta o en el bulto que esté
agricultural
llevando el
livestock or
pasajero,
agricultural product
¿ok?
is in the
Y también
suitcase
hoy
that the
en día se
passenger is carrying.
encuentra lo
And
que es
also,
esa
nowadays we
figura
have
del
this,
prepuesto, que
that
es
is
aquel
the
profesional
figure
también que se
that's
encarga
head of
de
the position,
la brigada
that is also in charge of the canine brigade, brigade
o del puerto donde nosotros estemos
of the airport
trabajando en ese
or the
momento.
place where we are working at
Existe
that
un jefe
moment.
nacional también,
There is
dada
also
la
a national
magnitud, dado el tamaño que
GP
tenga hoy
given
día
the size
la unidad canina,
that the canine unit has
se
nowadays.
cuenta, ¿verdad? Con
We
este
have
jefe nacional que lo que hace es
this national
gerenciar
head that
todas
what
las
he or
operaciones
she does is to
que lleva a
manage all the
cabo
operations that are carried out
esta gran
by
unidad
this
canina.
great
Quiero
canine
mencionar
unit.
también
I would like to
que
mention also
hay una parte, un gran
that there
porcentaje
is a
hoy
part,
día
a great
que
percentage
ya también fue
nowadays
formado
that has also been
en
put
República
together
Dominicana.
in Dominican
Es
Republic.
decir, el
In
país
other words,
hacia
the country
2021
toward
empieza
2021
a trabajar
began to work
este tema de binomios caninos
on this
en
topic of
salida
canine binomials
y
at departures,
hacia
and it
2026
is by
ya cuenta
2025
con
that
tres
it already
generaciones
has three
que lograron
generations
formarse
that were put together in Dominican
con el
Republic
apoyo de la Dirección Nacional de
with the
Control de
support of the
Drogas,
National
quienes
Directory of
tienen un
Drug
centro
Enforcement,
regional,
who have a
¿verdad?,
regional center
de capacitación canina. Y ellos
for
desde hace
canine
mucho tiempo
training,
tienen esa
and they for a long
experiencia
time have
con
had that
unidades caninas.
experience
Sin embargo,
with
ellos
canine units. Nevertheless,
formaban a los
they
caninos no
train,
solamente,
or they
digamos,
used to
para
train
narcóticos,
canines
para
only for
armas,
drugs, for
para
weapons, for
sustancias
explosives,
ilícitas y demás, pero
illegal
hoy,
substances, and so forth. But nowadays,
dada esta
given this
experiencia que se tuvo
experience that we
con ellos
had
y nosotros,
between them
ellos
and us,
cuentan con
they
la
also have
capacidad de formar
the capability
binomios
of
caninos para detección de
training
productos
canine
de origen
units
agropecuario.
for the
Entonces, al día de hoy,
agro-livestock
la unidad
products.
canina sigue
So to
creciendo.
this day, the canine unit continues on growing, and it has
45 profesionales
45
y
professionals.
con vista
And
a seguir
with
creciendo.
the objective of continuing
Digo
on
esto
growing,
porque
and I say this
ya las
because
autoridades nacionales
the national authorities,
Ministerio de Agricultura,
the
la
Ministry of
Ganadería, la
Agriculture,
Ganadería
the
han, digamos que
agricultural livestock,
asumido, ¿verdad?,
have
como suyo
undertaken as their own
proyecto y
this project.
lo que se prevé
And
es que
what
las
is
unidades
in the
caninas
future,
van
what
a
is
seguir
seen in
por
the future is
siempre
that the canine units are
formando
going to
parte
continue on forever
de los
being a
servicios
part of the
veterinarios
quarantine
de
services
Dominicana y
of
también del
Dominican
resto
Republic, and also
de los demás países.
of all
Por parte,
the
por
other
ejemplo, de
countries.
los
For
compañeros de
example,
USDA, APHIS,
from
siguen,
the
¿verdad?,
colleagues of the
apoyando
USDA
esta
APHIS, they
iniciativa.
continue
Al
on
inicio,
supporting this
debo
initiative.
comentar
In the
que,
beginning, I have to
bueno,
comment that
el país cuenta con 7
the
aeropuertos
country has
internacionales,
7
de los
international
cuales la
airports,
Dirección Regional de
of
Servicios
which the
Operacionales, la
regional
OIRSA,
directory
llevó
of
a
the
cabo
OISA
un
carried out
operativo
an
que lo que
operation
buscaba
that what they
es
were looking for was
levantar la
to
información
increase
de cuáles
or
son
to
aquellos
produce the
puntos,
information
¿verdad?,
of which are those points,
fronterizos en el país
border points in the
donde
country, in
necesitaban poner
which
más
they
atención
need
debido a
to
su
pay more attention
riesgo,
to due to their
tanto de
risk,
entrada de enfermedades, pero también
both
como de
of
salida
admission
de
as well
la
as of
peste
exit
suina africana.
of
Entonces, en
the
ese momento se
ASF.
identificaron
At this
4
moment,
aeropuertos
we had
internacionales
4 international
donde
airports
la
identified for
unidad
that,
canina
where the
empezó
canine
a
unit
trabajar y todavía
started
ahí se
working,
sigue
and it still
fortaleciendo.
continues on being strong
Pero
there.
además
But
existe
apart from that,
un punto
there is a
que
point
es el puerto de
that
Santo
is
Domingo
the port
donde
of Santo Domingo,
se mueve la
where we have
ferry
the ferry
República
moving between
Dominicana
Dominican
y
Republic and San
Puerto
Juan,
Rico.
Puerto Rico.
Allí se identificó también un
We
gran
also
riesgo,
identified a great
¿verdad?,
risk
de
there
salida de
of
esta
departure
enfermedad
of this
hacia
illness
un país vecino.
towards a neighboring country.
Entonces, al día de
So,
hoy, ya
to
recientemente,
this day,
la unidad
recently,
canina también se
the canine
encuentra
unit is also present
operando
operating
allí en
there
la
at
terminal del ferry, lo que
the
significa
ferry terminals.
que va a tener que seguir creciendo y pues
What means that it's going to have to continue on growing,
totalmente de acuerdo
and
con
we completely agree
continuar apoyando.
with continuing on supporting them. But
También
also,
esta iniciativa,
it is this initiative,
digamos que ha, luego de
uh,
que las autoridades nacionales
after the national
pues,
authorities
han digamos
eh,
que asumido como
have
suyos
undertaken as their own
esta gran herramienta,
this
esta gran
great tool,
iniciativa,
this
pues
initiative.
también se ha estado
Well, we have
fortaleciendo
also been strengthening
que se implementen, a que se formen
and
unidades caninas
the
que puedan
implementation and
mirar
preparation of
cuarentenas de
canine units
entrada, ¿verdad?
that
En el
can look
país.
at
Y
incoming
bueno, hoy
quarantine
día,
for the country. And
apoyados
nowadays,
también por
also supported by
entidades como son
entities
el
such
Banco
as
Interamericano de
the Inter-American
Desarrollo,
Development Bank,
se cuenta con una
we
flotilla de
have
11
a
vehículos
fleet of
furgonetas
11
para
vehicles,
ir creando
station wagon
las
vehicles,
capacidades, informando
to
las
create
capacidades de una
and
unidad
to
canina que
prepare
pueda
the
entonces
capabilities of a
estar
canine
mirando
unit
la
that can
parte de
be
entrada.
examining also
Se
the
cuenta con
incoming.
5 binomios caninos
We have 5 canine
conformados
binomials that have
recientemente
already been put
operando
together, and they are
en uno
operating
de los aeropuertos
in one
internacionales
of the international
con,
airports
que presenta mayor riesgo
that
para
represent the biggest
entrar,
risk for the
¿verdad?
entrance, for the admission
En el país.
into the
Y
country.
este está operado al
And this
100%
is
por la Dirección
operating
General de Ganadería del
100%
Ministerio
by the
de Agricultura de la República
agricultural
Dominicana.
sector of
Pero no solo se queda ahí, sino
of the
también que hoy
Ministry of
día
Agriculture of
también
Dominican
hay un
Republic. But
cambio
it's not only that,
que ha
but
sido
nowadays
adquirido
we also
con
have a
participación de
canine
la
unit that has
FAO,
been
de
acquired
representación
with the
República
participation
Dominicana,
of the FAO
para
and the
seguir
representation of the Dominican
fortaleciendo,
Republic to continue
¿verdad?,
on
los trabajos
strengthening
de inspección no
the
intrusiva.
jobs of
Pero
intrusive
además,
inspection. But apart from that,
existen dos canes que
there are
están
2 canine
siendo
units
adquiridos
that have also been
con
acquired
recursos, digamos,
with
nacionales en
resources
Orisa y
in
el
Orissa
Ministerio de Agricultura.
and the Ministry of Agriculture.
También actualmente con participación de la FAO
Currently,
en
with
territorio
the
dominicano,
participation
el
of
obispo
FAO
del Ministerio de
in Dominican
Agricultura
Republic
se encuentra
representation, OIRSA and the Ministry of
desarrollando,
Agriculture
actualizando
are developing and updating
un aplicativo como tal, ¿verdad?,
an
que nos sirva
application
para
that
la fácil captura,
can help
manejo
to
y
easily
análisis de los datos
collect and
que
analyze data for
esta
this
unidad canina
canine
que está mirando
unit
entrada pueda irse
that
fortaleciendo,
is looking at ports
porque
of entry for it to
han sido
become
muchos los
stronger.
actores, como le acabo de mencionar,
There
que
have
se
been many
encuentran
stakeholders, as I've
apoyando
mentioned, that have supported this
en esta
initiative,
inspección no
that believe
intrusiva, que la
in
respetan. Entonces,
non-intrusive
ellos
inspection,
necesitan
and they
empezar con
also
pie
want
derecho, es
to
decir,
start
el
off on the right
aplicativo
foot. By that,
fuerte,
they
robusto, que
think
cuenta
that
también con
this
experiencia
application
regional
is a
de la
good idea. It's a
unidad de
robust one. It has
servicios
the regional
particulares de
experience
OIRSA
of quarantine
para
services of OIRSA
empezar
incorporated
con la
so
mayor de las
that
fortalezas en el
we
tema
can
de
start
captura
as
y
strongly as we
análisis,
can
¿verdad?,
in collection of
de
data
los
and
datos.
analyzing all the
Por otra
information.
parte, la unidad canina de salidas
The
cuenta
exit
con
canine unit has
la captura y análisis de datos
also the
muy
data collection
específico
and analysis. It's
para
very specific
especies de
to
porcina
its
africana, ¿verdad?,
role
que describe
to
los
fight
productos,
ASF.
el
So it's
producto
for
de
African swine
origen
fever
porcino
and
que
products and
se
subproducts
encuentra
that have
en destino, que iban en
origin or
camino
that are pork
a
related and that
los países
were
priorizados, es decir, Estados
going to
Unidos,
priority
por
countries,
ejemplo,
so United States,
y
Mexico,
Centroamérica.
and Central America.
Pero ya este aplicativo del
Now
como
that
digo,
application,
pretende pues poder capturar
this newer application
esa
wants to
amplia gama
also
de datos
ensure
que va a
that it
estar
can
generando
capture all
esta
the variety of
inspección
data
intrusiva
of
en puntos de entrada
non-intrusive
específicamente.
inspection in specific points
Por
of
ejemplo,
entry.
solo para
So just to give
comentar un
you
poco acerca de los datos
some
de salida,
examples
por
and looking
ejemplo,
at the
esto es el primer semestre
exit
de
data. This is for the
año
first semester of
2025,
this year,
¿verdad? Aquí
2025.
están los 4
We are
puntos
seeing the 4
de salida, ¿verdad? Los
points
4
of
aeropuertos
exit,
internacionales que
so
les he
the 4
comentado
international airports that I said
desde el
have
inicio,
been prioritized from
donde
the very beginning.
podemos
And we see
hablar de un número
that we
de
have
kilogramos
a total number
decomisados
of
en este
kilograms that
sector
have been
de
seized
subproductos
specifically on
de origen
pork
porcino,
products and subproducts, 2,833 kilograms in these
en el periodo enero,
first 6
julio
months,
y
so from January to July of
estamos hablando de
2025.
un
This
promedio de
means
decomisos
an
mensuales
average of
sobre
monthly
470
seizures of
kilos,
about more than
¿verdad?
470
Esto podemos
kilograms.
compararlo a
This can be
los
compared
300
to
kilos
300
promedio que
kilograms.
teníamos por
That's the
mes
average we
en
used to have
años
of
anteriores.
previous years
Es
of
decir, estamos
products
mirando
seized. So we're looking at In this semester, we're looking at an increase of the number of kilograms that have been seized. And this is only for pork products. This can be due to two things. First, the fact that we now have more experience, and I'll give the details to this. But additionally, this amount does not yet include the data that we are now collecting at the ferry terminal. This just started operations. So if we add that to this, so next semester, we would probably look at a bigger picture with the data included from the ferry point, the fifth point of exit that has also been prioritized, the ferry in Santo Domingo. This increase of the amount of detections can be attributed first to more experience, or the country as a whole has gained more experience in these types of inspections. And this has included ongoing training. We have not stopped providing training for all our staff that is in the canine unit. They have to be aware of the enormous work they are doing, how much they contribute every day when they work. And so that training includes recertifications. These are provided by our canine school, the SEACAN, under Senacica, always following or using the campus of the Autonomous University of Santo Domingo, which is our largest university, official university of the country. There's also been training on potential emergencies because they're working with a live animal, a living animal, the dog. And these types of trainings have been provided by visits, for example, from the comfort vessel of the U.S. Army. Every 2 years, I think it is, or a year and a half, they visit the country. And in these visits, they also provide services, free service to the country. They have physicians for any human health-related issues, but they also have veterinarians. We also always approach them to see if there's any updates that they may provide in training to help our canine units. Of course, there's also constant training in terms of data analysis using different types of software. In this case, it's Power BI. And then they've also received training in terms of detecting these risks with X-ray machines, and these have been provided by USDA and APHIS. Because, as I said, the canine unit does not only include the binom, the trainer and dog, but it has the instructors, the national heads, the heads of posts, and all these people need to be trained. The canine unit needs the best trained people working. The other experience we have that has also helped increase the number of kilograms seized and just the increase in detection by our canine units is because there has been a very good dissemination or information campaign. And this has been provided from different perspectives. I wanted to bring this up because there has been much participation in diverse activities of all kinds, and they all have contributed considerably to that increase in forfeiture or in increasing or building capacities of our canine units. For example, our canine unit has participated in agricultural expos, where the whole country comes together in a specific area for 7 or 8 days, And we have the participation of our canine units in those fairs and expositions. And so all kinds of people of every age get to meet our units, children and other people that are not even necessarily linked to agriculture or livestock farming. And they meet our canine units, they talk to them. And so that is a way to raise awareness in the public, and even train the public, if you will, so that when people in the country even leave the country and they have talked to our canine units, they know they should not take any pork products outside. So that just helps us spread the voice, spread the word. And also, the canine unit has at times worked with newsletters and just brochures or leaflets, physical hard copy leaflets that they hand out also when they are working. So that helps, again, raise awareness of anyone who is working with the canine units and the biome itself, the canine professionals, to just train people, raise awareness, tell tourists about their jobs, etc. We have other types of posts and publications. There's a lot of social media posts that have helped share the work our canine units do, because it's not just looking at a pretty dog, they're working at the airport, but people have to understand why they are there, what the dog is doing. And so that's the goal, the a lot of the work that has also been done in this information campaign. Also participating in social activities in the sector. This has really helped a lot. There have even been some agreements, cooperation agreements signed with, for example, rescue organizations. This month, actually, ORIRSA signed an agreement with a rescue organization, Fundación Lazo. So with them, we want to replicate what the canine units do in Mexico. So it's just giving a second opportunity to dogs that have not found a home yet. And so the Lazo Foundation brings potential candidates to the canine units, and they test these potential candidates to certain tests. And if the dog has the conditions, the optimal conditions to this, they are then an official, an officer in our canine unit. So it's a great collaboration as well. Other activities, outreach activities with universities, schools. This also helps because we, again, want everyone, all the audience, all the general public to understand why we have canine units working and why they are in agricultural work, what they're doing, and the great potential they have to help. And also in working with schools and universities and agricultural schools, you never know if we have the next inspection officer studying there who will then be working with a dog later on. We always like to mention as well, or show in this case, everything that can be found by one of these dogs. Obviously, we're focusing on ASF, and so for that they detect all types of agricultural products, but in Dominican Republic particularly, as they are working in exit points and for ASF, our current regulations allow them to seize these types of products and byproducts. As Engineer Hernandez, there's ham, salami, sometimes even the innards, different types of meats. We found all kinds of things. There's been a forfeiture of all kinds of products We could probably have a colorful album created because you find all kinds of things, sometimes pretty impressive or shocking. And that's, I guess, the nicer part of the work that these dogs are doing. So once they have seized the products, they are marked up uh, with methylene blue, and then they are incinerated. And incineration is part of the second line of defense. This is the second way to strengthen our quarantine services nationwide. This has always been included in the agreement as well with the Ministry of Agriculture and the government of the United States, and OIRSA, of course. So here we see a map of Dominican Republic showing the red dots, which are border points. That's for land borders, air crossings, or maritime borders that are important in the country. And so in the initial information that was collected by the quarantine services of OIRSA, we identified that trying to cover as much of these border points as possible required at that point the acquisition of incineration equipment. So we decided to purchase them, and based on the experience of OIRSA and with the approval of the government of the United States as well, we identified the incinerating equipment of the latest technology. They're eco-friendly. They produce the minimum of toxic emissions possible, that they have a long, useful life. So the best equipment really of the market. And right now, Dominican Republic has 5 incinerators. They are so large. They have a capacity of 200 kilograms per hour. There is one that has a capacity of 100 kilograms per hour, which, and of course, this is all based on the information collected and where they are placed. So we will be placing them in the corresponding border points. And we also have 6 incinerators that are a smaller size for land border points with a capacity of between 22 and 25 kilograms per hour. And today, they are working, they are installed in the different points, the points that have the greatest point of entry risk. And so the experience we have in terms of using the latest generation incinerators is first that we need to continue building capacities. We need to keep raising awareness of international waste or garbage. We have to understand that we need to continue strengthening this. We need people to understand, to be aware of what it could be if I take an apple from one country to the other, and what all that entails, and why I should not do it. And that's precisely what our quarantine services staff does every day, notifying people. Dominicans are people that if they like something in their country, they want to take exactly that to their compatriots to other countries. Salami, for example, is very famous in Dominican Republic, and wherever people go to visit, they want to take salami from Dominican Republic because it's part of our culture. We want to share it. And people feel that it doesn't taste the same in Dominican Republic or other countries. So they will try to travel with their pork products. This is something we've seen often. So when they are told they cannot leave the country with the product, we need to raise awareness in them and really explain why. So people really have to be taught or told why. So that's part of what I also wanted to say. We always need to continue raising awareness in our people so that they truly understand, and so the general public understands. Because international waste is not just trash or garbage. It's also the main pathway for the transport of several diseases, like the one we're focusing on currently, and it will endanger the agricultural heritage of other countries and even food safety and security of our countries. Because, as I said, no, I just want to take an apple. That's nothing really, but I have to understand that it can endanger the whole heritage, the whole wealth of agricultural heritage of the country I'm taking that to. So that's part of what we're doing. That's part of our experience in Dominican Republic on borders for African swine fever. Thank you so much.
Muchísimas gracias, doctora Stefani.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stefani. Thank you for sharing the experience in Dominican Republic. I know that you've done a lot of hard work over there, and you're just a great example for other countries in Latin America and the Americas overall to implement and follow in their countries. With that, I now give the floor to our next speaker, Dr. Budimir Pilesic. He is part of the World Organization for Animal Health, WOA. He is also the regional representative of Europe and the regional leader of the representation in Moscow. He will be talking about the experience in Europe regarding inspection surveillance at borders, airports, and ports. So with that, Dr. Budimir, you have the floor. We are open to hear you, and you can share your presentation, your screen.
Thank you very much, Erica, for introduction. And I will use this opportunity, first of all, to thank organizer for inviting us. I'm representing today World Organization for Animal Health for Europe, but also I'm talking on behalf of GFTADS, Global Framework for Transborder Animal Diseases, because we manage this disease, African swine fever, together with our partners, namely FAO. But first, I'm impressed with the quality of presentations. I'm impressed with the number of participants. I also follow some questions, and I want to greet everyone attending this important conference webinar, particularly our delegates from Americas and our focal points, and special thanks to our colleagues, Katya, I see them, and Veronica, and also others. Colleagues, I will share my screen. For the sake of time, I think you will not be against that I will be rational with the time. Since we have just a second for my sharing of my screen. I'm not going to share experience of countries like we learn from beautiful presentations and great speakers. I'm going to tell you how in Europe we deal with these diseases, with this disease, particularly African swine fever, which is endemic in some part of Europe, let's say in whole region, from 2007. It came as reported from Africa through one country of our region, Georgia. And there in 2007 and 2008 destroyed the whole population of animals. It was out of blue for our region, and then from that moment it was steadily spreading to the north, to the west, and to the east. And we followed that. Probably you are totally aware from that moment on. In 2014, in Europe, we created with this mechanism, which is on the screen, we call it Progressive Control of Transboundary Animal Disease under GFTADS. GFTADS is global framework for transboundary animal disease, very impactful diseases. We have it everywhere, in Americas, in Africa, in Asia Pacific, in Europe. And this is the way that we coordinate between our partners and particularly with member countries. In Europe, we have 53 member countries, and some of them has those diseases like African swine fever. Some of them are at threat, and we consider them as a very important platform together with the industry and other stakeholders. So we use this mechanism to avoid duplication, that FAO is doing the same thing like OI, VOH, and then the countries and industry, they are confused. That is the reason we created this GFTADS mechanism. In Europe, we have 6 priority diseases. African swine fever is one of them. And for this disease, we organize huge number of exchanges, meetings, workshops, seminars, conferences, where we invite not only our speakers and experts, but we invite particularly member countries, countries who face disease, countries who are dealing with this devastating animal diseases on the field day by day, every night. And this is a wonderful mechanism. I'm speaking also as a member country delegate. I was delegate of one member country. And for us, it was extremely useful, not only to learn from other countries, but also to use GFTAD's conclusions to go to speak with our politicians, with the government, with the ministers, with the Ministry of Finance, with the Ministry of Internal Affairs, etc., that they understand the issue, that they don't think there are shortcuts to deal with African swine fever, which we faced in some countries in Europe. That they understand the problem, that they follow clear animal health standards, rules that we develop together, and this is the beauty of collaboration that we have in region. I apologize not going into the specific, let's say, country experience, but I'm going to share joint, how to say, collective experience. For African swine fever, as I mentioned, in 2014, we created standing group of experts. All member countries are those which face the African swine fever, and others are observers. And then we meet, we speak, we talk, we create conclusions, we deliver recommendations. Relevant for this event, as you invited us, is the meeting that we organized in North Macedonia. This is in Balkans region, 23rd meeting, where we discuss mainly cross-border collaboration. And this is one of topics that we discussed not at the beginning, but more somewhere actually that happened last year. At the beginning, it was diagnostic investigations, field exercise, simulations, clinical recognition, sampling, testing, passive surveillance, then wild boar surveillance, biosecurity, in hunting, biosecurity in farms, backyard holdings, etc. This is the screen actually to guide you if you want, if you wish to visit sometimes and to hear experiences that we share there from different countries, which is absolutely useful and actually great. Everything is transparent and available. Actually, we have a small article here, but below we have a list of recommendations and all presentations by member countries, by participants, by experts, and then your teams, your colleagues could visit them, you could follow them, you could ask questions. Our team will be always ready for you through our offices that we have in Americas or directly, but We could share additional experience. Maybe we could also invite specific experts that we basically wanted to have today. But eventually we decided, since we have intention to increase collaboration between Europe and Americas. Actually, it was a wish that myself participate this seminar, this webinar, to share information with you, and then to ask, actually to respond to some of your questions, and then to see what is priority for you. I'm going to briefly tell you what happened in this event in North Macedonia. Who was there? As I mentioned, we have in Europe 53 member countries, but also we have a lot of partners. Major driver for us is European Commission, who is president of our regional collaboration mechanism of GFTADS, and provider of a lot of resources. You probably remember that we sometimes had Dr. Van Gotten participating in events in Americas, or his team, and but also we have EIAI, we have National Reference Laboratories. We also invite industry, we invite hunting associations. We basically want to speak to everyone who could contribute to find a better solution for GFTADS. While talking, I'm trying to also to paste some text for you, some recommendations, because this is probably the best thing that we could offer through this mechanism. Not that we have. No, I cannot paste. But we have work standards and specific things, but that we share with you a specific experience. Then what is the possible interest for you? Why is so important cross-border collaboration? In Europe, African swine fever continue to be major threat to animal health, destroying swine industry, meat industry, also very dangerous for rural development. The reason it is so difficult to contain this disease, because from one side we have wild boar population. Once affected, this is huge danger. We cannot control them, we cannot destroy them, we cannot kill them, and they don't care for our borders, for our ideas, etc. Their natural movement across shared land boundaries is primary way for distribution of the virus. In addition, we have smuggling and illegal trade of pork, live animals, and also wildlife, illegal trade in particular areas of Europe. And those aspects, they make international collaboration absolutely essential to control disease. Therefore, we need to engage different stakeholders in countries. We should put all heads together on the table, that people understand the issue, then that we have joint action at the border, that we find a way to control in hunting grounds. And another aspect is social economical aspect, because background in some area is such a way that we have a huge number of backyard holding, and they keep one or few pigs for own consumptions, and sometimes they trade. And then when there is a disease, it is not always that they are notified that we come, destroy, contain. No, they may be slaughtered, they may be sold, and this is of huge importance. During the meeting, we have some countries like Albania, Latvia, France, they share their studies, their practices, and then we concluded that coordinated policies and shared resources and clear communication are critically important. In some area, like in Austria, Germany, Switzerland, North Italy, they also work together that find a way to prevent. It is not the affected area. Therefore, this cross-border collaboration is the key. This is one of the messages that I wanted to share with you today. And the next question is, what is the point? Why we travel and meet and talk, etc. The meeting was not just to understand disease, just about discussion. It is about to develop a plan. The plan for collectively for different countries or sub-regions, but also that countries could consume and then deliver to their national authorities ideas for national context. And we work together, participants, to create a set of recommendations, but those who are feasible, actionable, to improve this collaboration between countries, and then to go further to their own national context, national authorities. Key points for this are, first of all, joint preparedness. Member countries, together with all partners inside industry, authorities, research science organization, should draft together joint contingency plans and practice them during the peacetime. This means to have political framework also in place, also some financial resources, political support, and consensus during the peacetime, because during the crisis time, when virus hit, there is no time for such agreements. It's too late. And we face that, myself, or not only with African swine fever, with classical swine fever, and then drills and practices. Cross-border simulation exercises are so important that these plans should be checked and that ensure that they know what is happening. And then you will be so proud when you have received a call from neighboring country and tell, look, my colleague, we have it. And then you know that you need to increase and to mobilize your people, your resources. That means that communication is the key. That is the reason regular, transparent meetings, despite difficulties and despite sometimes political silence, etc., but to share technical knowledge, to share the data and information, to build the trust. This is absolutely necessary when you have the virus of African swine fever. Public awareness is another point. I will not go into the details. It was mentioned already today. Wild boar management. I'm not sure about practices in Americas, but in Europe we have areas where wild boar management is issue because of hunting, which is great, a huge industry, and a lot of people practice this. They bring different things in and out of hunting ground. And then science laboratories, genetic sequences is one of things where we need to share our ideas, knowledge, data, etc. The way forward was also discussed, and this is important. So we reinforced the idea that African swine fever is complex, and such problem need a lot of efforts, robust international collaboration between different partners. And from that point, actually, we just continue with more strength to organize other meetings, to continue our collaboration, and we have them regularly. For example, next month, exactly in 4 weeks, we will have GFTAT's conference in Europe. We will cover African swine fever and other diseases, and it will be in one place. One place for different events where we will discuss different aspects. That is my, I would say, brief presentation. If my computer will allow me to put my recommendations in the chat, I will do that immediately. I'm struggling now because copy-paste doesn't work. Maybe I'm not person for multitasking. This is obvious. I never was, but I will do that, colleagues. And Erica, Katya, colleagues, again, thank you very much for invitation. We will be very happy to continue with this approach and will attend in some capacity some of your next meetings. Good night from Europe.
Muchísimas gracias,
Thank you very
doctor
much,
Müller.
Doctor. Vladimir,
entendemos que es
Vladimir,
tarde
we
en
understand
Europa y
that
que
it
usted
is
tiene
late
otros
in Europe
compromisos.
and that you have other commitments.
Así que bueno,
So
le agradecemos muchísimo su
we would like to
intervención.
thank you very much for your
Pasaremos
intervention, your
a la sección
participation.
de preguntas,
We are going to
pero
go on to the question and answer section
si hay
right now.
preguntas para usted,
If
pues
there
las
are any
haremos
questions for
llegar porque
you, we
sabemos
will
que
let
tiene
you
que
receive them
ausentarse.
because we know that you
Pero
have to leave.
muchísimas
But
gracias. Es muy
thank you.
importante,
It is
como
very
usted dice,
important
la
from our,
comunicación
as you
y es por
say,
eso que es
the communication, and that is
esencial que
why it is
tengamos este
essential
tipo de
that we
intervenciones
have this type
como el
of
webinar de hoy.
participations
Así
like
que
this
bueno,
webinar today. So
ahora sí,
with that,
con la
okay,
doctora Martínez,
with Dr.
vamos a
Martinez,
pasar
we are
ya
going to go
a
on
lo
now
que es el
to
foro
the
de
part
preguntas.
of questions and answers.
Así que pues
We
voy
have
a
2 questions right
iniciar.
there. I'm going to begin.
No sé, Katia, si tenés
I don't know,
acceso
Katia, if you
a
have
las
access
preguntas,
to the
voy a
questions.
iniciar yo primero
I'm
y
going to begin
después
first and then
puedes seguir vos con la siguiente.
you can
Entonces,
continue on. So it says
la
first,
primera
the
pregunta,
first
invitar a los
question
panelistas, felicitarlos a
invites
todos,
the
e
panelists,
invito a los
as they
panelistas a
invites all the panel members
estar
to
pendientes,
be aware,
porque pues acá que tenemos las
because
preguntas,
here
solo
we are going
realmente
to have
vamos
some questions.
a hacer
We're just going to
15
have
minutos de preguntas porque no tenemos
15
mucho
minutes of
tiempo,
questions
ya
because we don't
estamos
have a lot of
atrasados,
time.
pero
But
la
in
primera
any case,
iría
the
dirigida
first one is
para
addressed to
bueno, acá no sé
here.
si ya el
I don't
doctor
know.
Budimir se fue,
I
pero
don't know if
entonces
Dr. Vladimir already left, but
podríamos iniciar con la pregunta para
we
el
can
doctor
begin with
Budimir, o
with a
la
question for
seguimos
Dr.
pasando
Vladimir, or can you do it later?
todavía la están formulando acá.
They're still making it there. Okay.
Entonces, bueno, acá sigue.
Okay,
Entonces la vamos a
here it
hacer de
continues.
una
Okay.
vez.
So
Vamos a
we're
hacerla
going
de
to do it
una
right
vez
away.
antes de
Dr.
que se
Vladimir,
nos vaya.
before you leave.
Doctor Budimir,
Dr. Vladimir,
acá hay una
here
pregunta para
there is a
usted,
question for you
que es,
that says,
permítame un segundo,
allow me a second.
no sé quién la está
I don't know
formulando.
who is
No,
formulating
vamos a
this question.
esperarnos
No,
un segundo porque todavía
we're
no
going
la
to wait a
están
second
formulando
because they are
dentro del
still
sistema de preguntas.
putting it
Entonces,
within the question
la
system.
primera pregunta iría
The
dirigida
first
al doctor
question would
ingeniero
be
Iván
directed to
Hernández
Dr. Iván
de parte
Hernandez
de Alejandro
on
Pérez de
behalf of
Senasa de
Alejandro Pérez from
Argentina.
Senasa, Argentina.
Nos dice la pregunta así:
And it says like
¿existen
this.
estadísticas
Are
de
there
los
statistics
decomisos
of the
de los
seizures
equipajes de
of the
turistas y pasajeros que se realizan?
luggage, tourists and passengers that are carried out in
Va
Dominican Republic?
dirigida específicamente a República
It is
Dominicana, pero
directed,
puede ser
specifically
bajo su
directed to
experiencia en
Dominican
cualquier
Republic,
lugar.
but it can be under
Adelante.
the experience in any of the places.
Sí, gracias.
Yes,
Sí,
thank you.
claro, manejamos
Yes, of course,
mucha
we
estadística
have a lot of
sobre
statistics
los diferentes tipos
regarding the different
productos
types of
que
products
manejamos
that we
y
handle,
decomisamos, que
that we
encontramos,
seize,
¿verdad?
and that we find
Específicamente,
specifically
como le
in,
mencionaba,
as I
los
mentioned,
famosos salamis,
the famous
¿verdad? Que son
salamis,
parte de la cultura
which is part of the
dominicana, y sí
Dominican
lo llevamos
culture.
registrado,
We
salami,
do have
queso,
that register,
jamón, todo
salami,
ese tipo de
ham,
productos, sí
all
los
these type of
llevamos
products that we do have them
registrados,
duly registered,
tanto por evento como
both
por cantidad,
by number of event as well as
¿verdad?
in quantity, weight,
Eventos realmente que
event
realizan, que se
that are
ejecutan.
carried out and that are executed.
Y es una estadística que se está
It is a
compartiendo
statistic that is
oficialmente,
being
¿verdad?
shared officially,
Incluso la llevamos por
and we even
binomio canino, que es lo que detecta,
keep a statistic of the canine
pero
binomials
también
that
la
detects it,
eficiencia de
because this has
cada
also allowed us to
por decirlo así.
measure the efficiency of each
¿Qué es lo que más
canine binomial
qué es lo que más
and
está
what it is that
detectando
that they
precisamente
are
para ir
detecting the most,
fortaleciendo
precisely to try to strengthen
sus habilidades, por decirlo
their
así, ¿verdad?
skills, to say it
Fortaleciendo
somehow, and to
ese aroma.
strengthen
No sé si
that
me
aroma
corto.
or that scent. Yes, of course.
Muchísimas gracias,
Statistics are held.
Iván.
Thank you very much. Okay, Ivan.
Adelante,
Please go ahead,
doctora
Katia,
Martínez.
Dr. Martinez.
Tiene el micrófono.
Your mic is muted, Dr. Martinez. Sorry.
Sorry, Erika, que estaba jugando con las preguntas y la...
Sorry, I was playing with the questions then.
Ok, la siguiente pregunta
Okay.
es, hola,
The
buenos
next
días a
question.
todos,
Good
ya me
morning to
había
all of you.
saludado. ¿cómo
I
están?
had not said hi
La
to you. Good
siguiente
morning. How are
consulta
you?
que
The next
tenemos
question
en
that we
la
have
recabada es para la
collected
doctora
is
Sandra
for
Corona.
Dr. Sandra Corona.
La consulta inicial
The
es
question
¿cuánto
begins
demora
by
el
how long does it
entrenamiento de
take
los perros y cuánto
the training
puede
of the
variar
dogs, and how
o cambiar
can
la capacidad de detección en la
you
jornada de
change
trabajo? Voy a
or
hacerlas todas juntas
vary
porque
the
van todas relacionadas.
detection in the working schedule? I'm
Adicional
going
a
to say
eso
them all together.
también, la
In addition to
segunda
that,
pregunta va
the second
relacionada
question is
a
related
todos los
to
perros tienen la
all
misma
the dogs.
capacidad de
Do they have the
detección
same capability of detection?
y si existen
All
consideraciones del
species of
bienestar
dogs are
animal en el manejo de los
races,
animales
and
en
is there considerations that have to be
práctica.
dealt with in the management of those canine units?
Bueno, buen día. Sí, los animales.
The animals.
Doctora Corona.
¿Me escucha? Bueno.
Sí, la
Hello.
escuchamos.
Yes, we hear you.
Gracias. Pues sí,
Thank you.
comentar, los animales.
Yes, to comment
tienen
that the
un
animals
horario
have
laboral, por decirlo de
a
alguna
working
manera,
schedule, to say it
así
somehow,
como sus horarios de descanso.
as well as their rest periods.
Al momento de
And
que los animales son
at the moment in which
seleccionados
the
de
animals are
acuerdo a las
selected,
características
according to the
Erika, si la doctora
characteristics.
Corona está. Sí,
¿Sí me
Sí,
escuchan?
sí, Katia, ella está contestando.
Yes, Katia, she is answering.
no sé si soy yo.
I think it's me. I think it's you.
Adelante, doctora.
Bueno, y además los animales son seleccionados.
Yeah, apart from that, the animals are selected
Formar parte como unidades caninas.
so that they have special canines. They have to be in an adequate environment and to be able to work adequately.
No sé si con eso contesto
I don't know if with that I answered your question.
Muchas gracias, doctora. Sí.
Thank you
Con
very
eso nos
much,
responde la
doctor. With
pregunta.
that, you are answering the
Creo
question.
que la doctora
I
Martínez
think
está
that
teniendo
Dr.
algunos
Martinez is
problemas
having
de
some sort of
audio.
problems with her audio.
La siguiente pregunta
The next question is
queda a cargo de la doctora Camposano.
in charge of Dr.
Adelante,
Camposano.
doctora.
Please go ahead, doctor.
Gracias, buenas tardes.
Thank you. Good afternoon. This question is for Dr. Budimir.
Y dice,
And it
¿nos podría
says,
indicar,
could
por
you tell
favor,
us, please,
cómo los países de una región
how
pueden hacer
can the
frente
countries of a
a
region
una amenaza como la
face
gripe
threats
porcina
such as the
africana?
African
¿Cuál es la
swine
mejor
fever?
estrategia que han
What is the
aplicado
best
en la
strategy
Unión
that you have
Europea?
applied in the European Union to face this illness or this disease?
No sé si el doctor
Dr.
Budimir sigue
Budimir,
con
are you still with
nosotros
us?
o tuvo que abandonar la sala.
Or did you leave the conference? I think he left the
Yo creo que el
conference.
doctor Budimir se tuvo
I
que ir.
think Dr.
Ya se
Budimir left.
retiró.
Ok. Entonces,
He has left already.
doctora Camposano, sigue con
Dr.
la
Camposano, continue on with the next
próxima
question.
pregunta, por favor.
Dame un momento, por favor.
Give
La
me a second,
siguiente
please.
es para
The next one is
doctor
for
Alonso, de Carlos
Dr.
Alfaro.
Alonso Stefani.
¿Es posible que se pueda
It
tener
says, is
acceso a
it
la
possible that we
información de
might have access to the
divulgación
information
acerca de la
of
actividad que
dissemination
realizan
regarding
los
the activities that
binomios
are carried out by the
en los puestos
binomials
fronterizos?
in the border,
¿Cuáles serían los
in the borders
procesos
and
para
entry
la
points?
obtención de estos
What would be
animales para el
the process
servicio
for
de
the attention of
inspección?
these animals for the
Muchas
inspection
gracias y
services? Thank you very
excelente
much.
labor.
An excellent job.
Sí, bueno, gracias Carlos por...
Thank you, Carlos, for that question.
Bueno, sí, como decía el
Yes,
sí
as
se puede
Luis Hernandez
a
said,
toda esta información.
we have access. We can have access to all this information.
solicitarla
It's just a matter of
a la
requesting it
autoridad oficial, ¿verdad?
to the official authority of the Ministry of Agriculture,
Dominicana, y ellos
Dominican Republic, and
nos autorizan y entonces,
they would authorize us, and
le pasamos
with that we can pass you the information
con todo gusto.
very happily. Regarding
Sobre la otra pregunta,
the other question,
del proceso de formación
which was the
del
process
CERCAM,
for
¿verdad?
the
Sí, correctamente.
preparation of the canine, if I understood correctly well,
can
every
tiene su
dog
propia,
has its own
digamos, su propia forma.
way of learning.
De ahí nace,
Nevertheless,
lo importante, que es,
that's where the important thing comes out
la
from,
gran,
which is
bueno, la capacitación que tenga primero
the training
el instructor,
that the
¿verdad?
instructor
Para
has to receive
entender
first, to be able to
cómo
understand
cada individuo
how each
puede,
individual
acatar
can understand quicker the instructions that are being given. And at the moment in which they are working, they depend very much on the professional that makes up that binomial, because this tool cannot work on its own. It cannot be the dog on its own or the person on its own. To be able to create these groups, they have to be trained both together, the man, the trainer, and the dog. And once they are in the work field, it depends a lot on how a professional, the binomial is working in regard to the detection and capacity that the canine is going to have. There is a lot of influence by the way in which the person maintains or keeps the dog interested or active in the job. And that is where we have a great relevance of a continuous training and recertifying several years, times a year, these professionals, because they need to be very active, very aware of the job that is carried out every day at every moment. Because let's say that their work partner is also a living being. I hope that with this, I have answered your question. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Dr. Alonso.
Thank you very
Hay
much,
otra
Dr.
preguntita
Spani.
acá para
There's
usted,
another question here for you.
así que no se me vayan.
So please don't leave.
Dice así,
It
es también
says
por parte
it's
del
also
doctor Carlos
on behalf
Alfaro.
of Dr. Carlos
Y
Alfaro.
dice, la
And it says
experiencia que han tenido
the
con
experience
los
that you have had
incineradores,
with the
¿cuánto
incinerators,
en
how
cuanto a los
much
tamaños
in
y
regard to the
capacidades
sizes
nos podrían
and
ampliar
capabilities that could you
cómo ha
expand
sido esa
how
experiencia,
that
las
experience has
capacidades
been,
recomendadas, la
the
cantidad de
capabilities that are
cursos por
recommended, the
día
amount of
y cómo
seizures
es
a
el
day that are
manejo de los
processed, and
desechos
how is the
numéricos?
management of the waste that is generated?
Sí, bueno, gracias, Carlos.
Yes, thank you, Carlos, once again for your question.
Miren, en el tema
Look, in the topic
manejo de
of
ya eso ahí
management of the incinerators,
digamos, campo más profundo para
that is a field
de hecho que si anda por ahí,
that is
quizá pueda
much more in depth, that Dr. Hernandez might be able to support us better with this answer. But nevertheless, from here, we do know that first, we have to identify the amount of waste that is generated at the border points that we want to work on. For this information to be collected, it's a very tedious job, because we have to have people working constantly there for several consecutive days without leaving any spaces, because they need to weigh, record absolutely all of the trash that is generated by that point. That is the only way in which we can identify the size of the incinerator that has to be used at that facility. The other thing that we would like to mention is the financial availability, because these equipment, they are very, very expensive. And in Dominican Republic, for example, they are beyond $250,000, $300,000 per equipment, and maybe even more, obviously, depending on the size and the capability that they have. So they are equipment that carry out a wonderful function, but we also have to identify the budgetary availability that we have for that. In regard to the management of the waste, each country will determine the modus operandi of their international trash management. And what we recommend, obviously, is that we can divide the local garbage from the international garbage, and to manage the international waste. Obviously, it is obtained and it is immediately sent to the incinerator without having any contact whatsoever with the other trash that is, let's say, the local trash.
Eso es lo ideal, pero obviamente cada país
That is
va a
real.
manejarlo
But
de
obviously,
acuerdo
each one
a
of the
sus
countries is going to
necesidades, a sus
manage it according to
posibilidades,
their needs,
¿verdad? Y a sus
their
criterios en función
possibilities, and their criteria based on
del riesgo que hayan
what they
identificado
have
en cada uno
defined or
los
identified in each one of
lugares
the border
definidos, ¿verdad?
crossings,
De la situación
depending on the
sanitaria que puedan
situation, on the
tener.
sanitary situation that they
Muchísimas
might have.
gracias por
Thank you very much. I hope I have
contestado
answered
la
the other question. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias, doctor Estefani.
Thank you, Dr. Stefani.
La próxima pregunta está
The next
a
question
cargo de la doctora Campuzano,
is going
porque
to
ya se
be
tiene que retirar, así
read
que
by Dr.
adelante,
Camposano because she has to leave
doctora.
already. So please, doctor,
Estás con el micrófono apagado.
your mic is muted.
Gracias. Primero
Thank you.
quisiera
First of all, I would
comentar
like
que
to
en el
comment
caso de México,
that in the case of
el ICA ha
Mexico,
destinado unos
the
recursos
ICA has
para
designated some
mejorar
resources for the
la
improvement
inspección que se realiza
of the
en las
inspection that
dos
is carried out
barreras que tiene
in the
el
two
SENACICA,
barriers that the
particularmente la
Senacica
Dirección
has,
General de Inspección
particularly the
Fitosanitaria, donde
National Directory of
colabora la
Phytosanitary
doctora
Inspection, where we have the
Corona.
collaboration of
Y
Dr.
bueno,
Corona.
este
And
trabajo
well, this
está
job
haciendo en conjunto
is
con
being done
recursos del ICA
along with
para
the ICA
reforzar
resources
todas
to
las
be able to
instalaciones que
reinforce
se encuentran en
all the
Veracruz,
facilities that are located in
Cosamaloapan
Veracruz,
particularmente,
Cosamaloapan,
y a través
particularly,
de los programas
and
operativos, que
through
este
the
es
operational
un recurso
programs,
del
which
SENACICA,
is a
el
resource
ICA
of the
también está
Senacica.
colaborando
The
para
ICA is also
mejorar las
collaborating to
instalaciones
improve the
y
facilities
adquirir
and to
determinadas,
acquire
determinados
certain
bienes o servicios que se
assets or
requieren
services that are
para
required
mejorar la
for the
vigilancia,
improvement of the
particularmente en
surveillance,
este caso con
particularly in this
gusano
case
envenenador, pero
for
obviamente
the screwworm,
sirve para
but
porcina
obviously
africana, para
it also works for
enfermaftosa,
African
en fin,
swine fever,
para
for
muchas otras
foot,
enfermedades
foot
que
and
también
mouth
pueden ser detectados algunos
fever,
casos
and for other
sospechosos
illnesses that
en
can
estos
be
puntos de
detected with
inspección.
some suspicious cases in these
Entonces,
points of
en
inspection.
este sentido,
So in this
se
sense,
está apoyando
well,
al
we are
SENACICA para
supporting the Senacica
hacer algunas
to
obras,
make some
incluso de
carry out some
infraestructura en
projects, even of
este punto
infrastructure,
de
in this
verificación e
point of
inspección
verification and inspection,
fitosanitaria, y esto es con la
sanitary.
particular
And
intención
this
de
is with the
evitar
particular
que
intention
el
of
gusano barrenador, que ya
avoiding
se
the
encuentra
drill
en
worm,
la
the
parte
screw worm
sur,
that is
pues
already located
llegue
in the south part of the
a
country might
otros
reach
estados que
other states
actualmente
that are
continúan
currently
libres. Pero
free
repito, sirve
of
para
it.
cualquier
But
otra de
as I
las
repeat, it
enfermedades y
works for any
plagas
other of the
que revisan los
other
inspectores
illnesses and pests
mexicanos.
that are inspected by Mexican
Bien, la
inspectors.
siguiente
And well,
pregunta
the next
también es
question
para el doctor
is also for
Estefani,
Dr.
es de
Stefani.
parte de William
It's on
Solano.
behalf of William
Por
Solano.
favor, doctor, ¿podrías
Please,
comentar la
doctor, could you
experiencia en
comment
binomios
the
caninos,
experience
si
of
existe
canine
relación
binomials,
en
if
el
there's a
aumento de
relationship
decomisos
in the
este
increase
año
of the
debido a la
seizure
mayor
this year
intervención
because
de
of the
unidades caninas?
greater intervention
¿Y
of canine
cuántas
units,
horas de
and how
inspección
many years of
diaria
inspection,
recomienda
daily
para cada
inspection are
canino?
recommended
Bueno,
for
va un
each
poco
canine?
relacionado con lo que
Well, this is a little
ya
bit
comentó
related
el
to
doctor
you, what the
Estefani,
comment
también un poco con lo
Dr.
que
Stefani has
señaló
already
la
commented, and
doctora
also a little
Corona.
bit related to
Adelante,
what Dr.
doctor
Corona has
Estefani,
mentioned. So,
gracias.
Dr. Stefani, please.
Ay, perdón.
Sorry, I
Micrófono.
had my mic muted.
Bueno, el
So,
tiempo de trabajo
the working time
del CAM va a
of
depender
the
mucho
canine is going to depend very much
del ambiente donde él
on
esté
the
trabajando
environment where
y
it is working and
del
of
individuo.
the
Como
individual.
comentaba hace un
As I
momento,
mentioned a while ago,
cada canis es
every
diferente.
canine
Hablo
unit is different.
del área, del espacio donde esté
I
trabajando,
talk about the
porque
area, the
el
space where they're
rendimiento
working,
de un can
because, for example, the
aeropuerto
performance of a canine unit
puede ser diferente,
in an
¿verdad?
airport might be different
Al rendimiento de un can
to the
en un área
performance of
fronteriza
a
terrestre, quizás
canine in a
forma
terrestrial
parte
border
también
crossing. It is
diferente
going
a
to
las
be
condiciones
the conditions,
ambientales
the environmental conditions are going to be very
en
different
un puerto marítimo
in a
por,
marine port
digamos, condiciones ambientales como
because of the environmental conditions such as the
temperatura, el
temperature,
calor que se pueda haber
the
sometido,
heat that
el lugar donde el
dog
animal
might be subject
esté
to, the place where the
caminando,
animal
¿verdad?
is walking on
Se ha identificado
it has been identified. It has been
por
identified
ejemplo,
that, for
ahí,
example,
por ejemplo, si está trabajando en piso, los
if it is
sensores y
working
está calentando
on the
demasiado
floor where
las
that is
patas,
say hot,
el
where
animal no
its
va a poder
paws
concentrarse
are being warmed up too much, the
si
animal is not
vieron
going to be able to
alguna de las
concentrate. I don't know if
fotos,
you've ever seen some of the
también
photographs.
están identificados.
They are also identified.
Nosotros necesitamos
We
proporcionarles a
need to
ellos
provide them
esos chalecos, ¿verdad? De identificación que sean
those
ligeros,
cards of
lo
identification
menor riguroso posible, que no le vayan a causar ningún estrés, ni
that are
incremento de
not hot at
temperatura.
all, that they do not cause any excessive temperature, that the staff that works with them also know how to handle and how to be able to release or anticipate any situation that might cause some sort of stress to the animal. And that therefore the animal may not be able to concentrate on its job. All this is going to have an influence on the task of work of the animal. For example, maintaining an animal concentrated with nonstop is practically maybe 25 to 40 minutes maximum. The animal working completely concentrated. And now, how long can we extend that time? As I say, that's going to depend on many things. The conditions that we're going to be working on, and well, the animal is going to lose concentration, and you give him a period of rest that they call resting period to be able to unstress the animal, and they have their working a period where they have the animal and they try to play with them to give them water and so forth, that the animal might relax and go back and rest. And this is normally something that takes 30 to 40 minutes. And well, and once the animal is relaxed again, and once the trainer knows that a canine is ready to go back to the work, well, he can go back and concentrate on what he is doing. That the person can go back.
By then, the person can go back and continue their work. And that depends a lot, depending on the officer. The officer that handles the dog does not strictly follow this procedure and helps the animal de-stress, the animal might come back to work, but they might not necessarily be as focused. The dog has to understand when it's working, it shifts its attitude when they are on the job and inspecting non-intrusively. When they are fully focused, they can detect anything. But if the animal is not concentrated, something might happen, something might pass through them, and they will not signal that there is a potential product that should be assessed. So I do want to emphasize the fact that it's very important for the dog to correctly have undergone all the technical tests before it is part of the the canine unit. But it's also important for the officer, the professional that handles the dog, to be very well trained and very much aware of what they are doing as well. I hope I answered the question.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Doctor, la
Yes,
verdad es que hay mucho interés por la
there's
parte
great
de
interest
inspección
really in working with these types of inspections with canine units.
Como vemos, es un tema fundamental para los
So it's
países
really
y
an
la
important
información
topic for all
necesaria.
countries.
En aras del tiempo, tenemos
Looking at the
pensado
time, I know
hacerlo
we
de
do
esta
have
manera de
several questions over social media
Zoom,
and here in
pero
the Zoom chat
ya
box,
tenemos
but
que terminar la
we do have
transmisión.
to close our
Así que
transmission. We have to
agradecemos
finish
todas sus
streaming, but
preguntas
please let
y
us
nosotros se los
have
enviaremos
all your
a los
questions, send them
doctores
to
y
us. We will
correspondientes.
send them over to
No
the
se olviden, por
doctors and
favor,
speakers
estar
that you
respuesta
want
que ya
to answer them. Please be
les
sure
hemos hecho llegar
to
a través del chat.
respond to the survey. We've
Pues
added it
para
to the chat box on several
evidenciar el
occasions.
impacto
We
que han
just
tenido
want to be
todos
sure
estos
how
webinars a lo largo
impactful
de
these
este año,
webinars have been over
cómo
the
han
years.
impactado en su país,
We
si
want
ha
to
expandido su
assess how
patrocinio,
this has
todo
helped
lo
your
que es la
country, if
prevención, la
these
protección y
webinars
la
have helped
prevención y la respuesta
prevent
de la
and
enfermedad y
respond
a otras
to
enfermedades
ASF in your
transfronterizas.
countries and other
Es
cross-border
importante para todas las
diseases. It's really
agencias
important for
nacionales
all
e
the regional
internacionales
and international
conocer
agencies
todo ese
to
impacto
have that
y
information, to know the impact
participar
of that. So
en
please
su
fill out the
responsabilidad.
survey. Additionally, we will also provide the link to the platform where you can find all the presentations. You can access all the content that has been created over the years for this, so for you to share and disseminate with others among all your official services, private services, universities, etc. Dr. Martinez, your closing remarks?
Gracias, Erika.
Thank you very much, Erica. It's always a pleasure to greet you all. We know that this is a difficult hour because it's also lunchtime. It's been a pleasure, really, to share with all of you, to interact with all the speakers, with all the questions. We see that this was an interesting topic for our attendees. And again, feel free to send us any questions, anything that you want answered. Erica has been sharing all the information, so you can contact her with the questions and she'll send them to the speakers. But anything else also, if you need something, we also helped organize the activity, so you can also contact us. And for any topics that are of interest to you in future, the idea is for these webinars to really cater to your country's needs, anything that you have identified, any specific training you may need. We will work to coordinate, find experts, and provide any support we can for the countries that need it and anyone else interested, because we're not limited to any specific countries. It is always a pleasure from the World Organization for Animal Health, and on behalf of everyone else, FAO, ICA, OIRSA, and all the members of the regional GFTAD, it's really wonderful to have your participation, and we'll keep in contact. Thank you and have a good day. Thank you, Doctor. And remember, next month we will have another webinar, so be on the lookout for that information. And have a nice day. And thank you, all the panelists. Wonderful. Bye-bye.